Hello friends, and welcome to this slightly earlier than usual Higurashi when they cry, welcome to the slightly earlier than usual Indie Thursday stream where I know how to start my streams because I'm a responsible human who is responsible. This week, for Indie Thursday, we're going to be continuing our playthrough of Higurashi when they cry, Tatarigoroshi. When we left off last week, we had just made the decision to, spoiler alert, kill Satoko's uncle. And this week, we're going to be picking up from when we decided to... We dug a grave on the mountain, and the next step was to go back to school and pick up a bat. We're just going to have a slight delay to getting started because my stream deck is not working, and I'm not sure what's going on. So... I'm getting a little tiny bit frustrated with my computer at the moment. We are running slightly earlier than usual today because move it and then re-add it, that'll work. I have an IRL thing to do at 10 o'clock, so going to be 10 o'clock my time, we're going to be doing that. So I'd really like to not be trying to sort out my my stream deck at this point, but hey, such is life. I wonder if I accidentally unplugged it. Give me a hard second. And I accidentally muted myself. We're back in action. We're sorted now. Unplugging, replugging it seems to have actually made it slightly more responsive, which is good. My computer's been having a couple of issues recently, so let's get started, shall we? From where we left off, going to pick up a baseball bat. And this will be a slightly shorter stream. It's only going to be a 2-hour stream because I've got to go do an IRL at 10 o'clock my time, so. There was nobody at school. I couldn't hear the playful voices of children. This is the first time I'd seen school with such a lack of human presence. Still, I quieted my breath and looked around, not wanting to be unprepared. It got darker outside, but it was almost like my eyes could see more clearly now. I made absolutely sure of my safety, then walked to the heavy instruction machine I'd hidden the metal bat behind. I had a tinge of worry, a premonition that someone had found the bat and hidden it somewhere as a prank. If that happened, would I take that as an opportunity to desist? Why, it's everywhere now. If it really wasn't there, then the sensation of chilled metal. It was still here where I left it. It hadn't run away. Satoshi hadn't run away. He'd waited here patiently for me. Sorry for the wait, Satoshi. It's been a long time coming. You prepared for this? Through the metallic touch, Satoshi grins at me in my mind. That's what I should be asking, you know? I did this last year already. I should be more worried about yourself. Right on, Satoshi. Let's show him a bad time. Satoshi's back got lighter and lighter and fit into my hands like it was being absorbed. It didn't feel wrong to swing this. I could move it around so naturally it was like an extension of my own right arm. Of course it felt like that. Satoshi and I were holding one back together. Next, I'd make the call to lure the man out. It wasn't a bad time for it. My friends were doubtlessly parading happily through the stalls. I hadn't considered where to make the call from. My house and Satoko's were pretty far apart. If I called from my house, I wouldn't make it. Can I use the school phone? But as I thought, the room was locked up and I couldn't get in. Shit. So naive. Should have at least figured this part out. Couldn't call him. And just for that, was today all over? I'm sorry, Satoshi. And just as I cursed my own naivety, a miracle occurred. A bicycle came into the schoolyard. It was a familiar, middle-aged man. The one from the Forest Service field office. Why? Wasn't today Sunday? Was he here to pick up something he forgot? Anyway, forest officer went around back and felt around in his pocket, then unlocked the door and entered. Best possible coincidence, and it had to be Satoshi who saved me. The metal bat, through just my contact with it, told me this was a chance I couldn't allow to slip by. The sections for the forest office and the school were neatly separated. I felt the man head into the forest office doorhouse, which was so far into the back students weren't allowed into it. The door didn't match its fittings well, so it didn't close all the way, and the gap in the door opened slowly as if to lure me in. I took a deep breath and went in. I tiptoed along, silently and stealthily, and made it into the teacher's lounge. That was the only place with a phone. As I held my breath in the teacher's lounge, I heard the Forest Service officer walking back over. Then the back door clattered shut and was locked. I glanced out the window at the schoolyard and watched as the man got on his bike like nothing had happened and rode out the school gate. The school once again emptied, becoming deathly silent. I waited for a bit to make sure the silence was the real deal, then reached for the telephone on the principal's desk. I fished Stoko's house phone number out of my pocket. Yes, the number in the class directory for Stoko had been the one from their house now, where she lived with her uncle. Touched the dial with my fingers, and then thought for a moment about what to say exactly when he picked up. Despite how many times I'd gone over it in my head last night, now that I had my finger on the dial like this, it started to seep out of my mind like a cracked bucket leaking water. Simple would be the best. More importantly, to say it straight and not sound suspicious. I counted off 3 heartbeats and spun the dial. The call sound. Would Stoko's uncle pick up? Now, of all times, the hope that he wouldn't pick up, and the feeling of doom and the knowledge that I couldn't save Satoko if he didn't, whirled around in a vortex. Oops, let me tap back into the game. Hello? It was the voice of a grumpy man, like he'd just woken up. He picked up. Sorry, I've got wires all over my desk and they're really annoying me now. Hello? Say your name so I know your Hojo, you asshole. Be terrible if I got it wrong. Made up my mind. I had all the initiative on my side. Here we go. This is the Shishibona Okonomiya police station. Am I speaking to the Hojo residents? With changing my voice, but did he really think I sounded like an adult? Would he believe I was the police? Oh, yes, this is Hojo. We currently have your daughter, Satoko Hojo, here with us. What? Satoko? What did that brat do? I fell for it. Could tell by how tense he was that he didn't doubt my words. Can explain the particulars once you've arrived here. Would you mind coming to the station right away? Right now? I already took a bath myself, so I don't really want to go out like this, though. What? You don't want to come because you already took a bath? Yes, right away. Right away? Jeez, man. The heck did Satoko do? I'll explain once you're here. I'll be waiting. Thank you for your assistance. 1 second. I don't know where the police station is. Where am I going? Moron. What the hell? Okonomiya police station? I don't know where it is either. Aren't you from around here? Why don't you know that? Grease's sweat came over my body. Eventually, just as I was about to choke, he spoke. Oh, next to the fire station, right? That's pretty far. Thank goodness, he remembered on his own for me. Didn't care where the police station was, so long as he left his house to get there. Then we'll be waiting here. Oh, wait. Who am I asking for once I get there? What is your name? Top of that, you want to know my name? Just leave your goddamn house already. Maybashi. Excuse me. That was close. I almost thoughtlessly told him my real name. Might have changed the last syllable of it, but I put the receiver down like I was running away. See, if it were me, I would have given Oishi's name, but I suppose you would have known that it was Oishi. My fingers were trembling and I was soaked with a tepid sweat. I wasn't just nervous about the phone call. With that call, everything had finally been put into motion. Should have used Mion's murder house, really. I left the school. It was locked before, but it was easy enough to open from the inside. But I couldn't lock it again after I left. In terms of being thorough, I wanted to lock it, but I couldn't waste time going back to the teacher's lounge and looking for the key. I needed to rush back as fast as I could and ambush him. I zoomed back to the scene on my bike. If Satoko's uncle got out of town before I got there, everything would be over. He'd learned there was no one at the station named Higurashi, and things would get pretty messed up. As I returned at full speed, I passed a family wearing yukata. They must have been on their way to the festival. Many people in Hinamizawa knew my face, though I didn't know theirs. Even just passing by them like this made me uneasy. But I didn't generally come around here, so those living in the area might not have known much about me. That didn't matter right now. I needed to get back as fast as possible, to control my breathing and to ambush the man. I hid my bike in a thicket and picked up Satoshi's bat, which I just left hidden in the shade. And then I held my breath, waiting to see someone. I wondered if he still hadn't got here, or maybe he went right after the phone call and passed by here already. Couldn't figure out which it was and was set upon by an indescribable impatience. Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. Even if he came here already, he'd pass by here on the way back, right? The end result would be the same. It wouldn't change the fact that he'd die. Probably be coming on his motorcycle. How would I stop him then? Figured it would be best not to think too hard and just hit him as he passed or beat him out of his seat. The path was made of pebbles. If I hit him as hard as I could and made him lose his balance, he wouldn't be able to help falling. And then, the chorus of the Higurashi stopped. The sound of a bike approached from far away. I couldn't tell what sort of motorcycle it was from its sound, but I'd seen it park before, so I'd know. It was getting rapidly closer. It was almost here. If he just went a little further, he'd cross into that thicket and appear in front of me. I'd take a moment to make sure it was him. Then when I had, I put my plan into action. The motorcycle appeared. Few easily identifiable characteristics told me it was Satoko's uncle's bike, without a doubt. Was it really him? Was it really Satoko's uncle? I wasn't making a mistake, was I? I looked at its characteristics again. Its colour, shape, and most of all, the man's clothes. And face. Those last feelings of hesitation. I did away with them. Satoko, now your Nini will end it, okay? Closer, closer. The bike came closer. Let's go. Satoshi. Yeah. Whoosh. I jumped out of the thicket. I used my shoulder to basically tackle the uncle on the bike with all my might. Ah! Ah! He gave a dumb shout as his bike completely lost its balance. Finally it fell, the bike scattering clouds of sand, and after spinning, it stopped. Her uncle, tossed to the ground, didn't understand what had happened, and groaned for a few moments, crouched on the ground. My breathing started to become ragged. No, I couldn't have this emotion. Some weird secretion crossed through my brain and nearly made me hallucinate. Her uncle was groaning. Now was the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. What was I doing? All the sounds in the world cut off. My mental chaos from a moment ago withdrew like a lie, and I could feel the temperature in my head rapidly cooling down. The tension in my muscles all went away like the strings they'd been attached to had been cut, and I let my hands dangle at my sides. It wasn't quite like exhaustion. Have you calmed down now, Keiichi Maebara? Do you need to remember again why things got to this point today? Scrape. Scrape. I stepped over the pebbled path, taking one step, another step, then another towards Toko's uncle. The more I walked, the more my breathing calmed. The more I walked, the more I felt my body cooling, calming, chilling with frost. Yes, at this moment, the sky had lost permission to live. I just rescinded it, so we mustn't stay in this world any longer. If he lived any longer, if Satoko's misfortune continued, it would be my responsibility for having allowed him to live. I could feel the cooling substance going through my whole body, even down to my capillaries. Her uncle was at my feet now, still on the ground like an idiot. I smiled coldly at how ridiculous he looked. Hurt. That's all it took for it to hurt. Satoko's heart hurt much more, and now you're going to feel that. And with your life, I'll make up for her pain. I erased all unnecessary information from my mind. I prioritised the murder of this man. Execute. 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 Wham! Music is very inappropriate. Utterly calm, I delivered my first strike to the back of his head. I wanted to get at the most effective spot. At least during that first moment, I'd have to attack him while he was at his most defenceless. When he was hit in the head, he'd cover his head. It was defensive reaction all humans made, like machines. He used both hands to cover his head, so he couldn't pick himself up off the heap he was on the ground. Like pounding a caterpillar into the dirt, I hit him over and over. If he covered his head, I'd hit him in the side. If he covered his body, I'd go for his head. If he rolled over, I'd strike his feet, his knees, his elbows. I didn't care where anymore. By just delivering one blow after another, I induced panic in him. I retained my overwhelming advantage, but I hadn't done nearly enough to deliver a fatal wound. My uncle skillfully pulled himself off the ground and started to run like a fleeing rabbit. It wasn't a judgment he'd made after seeing my face and deciding whether to fight me. Right now, he was fleeing by instinct, just trying to escape from the threat that had presented itself. A counterattack from a more physically capable uncle was what I was most concerned about. He may have run, but it wasn't all that unlucky, and the odds were in my favour. The uncle didn't run away towards people, but off the path and into the woods. How pleasant he'd run in a direction where nobody else was. He was fleeing into strange geography, like a rat that instinctively runs into tight spots over and over. Yes, he was no longer human. He was a rat. The blood vessels in my legs expanded and my oxygen supply increased. I lowered myself to gain the most explosive velocity I could. Without breathing, I became a wind-like shadow and dashed. Across thickets, crushed dead tree branches underfoot, and dove through the woods like a bullet. He ran so cowardly, arms flailing as he went. After catching up to him, I didn't need so much as the blink of an eye to strike him again. My senses, mind and body, were all sharpened purely to kill this man. This was the first time I'd felt like this. Well, this is the first experience I'd ever had killing someone. Felt natural continuing to do this for the first time. And that meant I had this much talent for killing. Perhaps the act of killing was so simple that anyone could do it. The thought that it's only social mores that keep us from doing terrible things does get to me quite often because of, like, intrusive thoughts. And the fact that you're like, I could do this thing, but I know it's wrong, or I know I shouldn't. I know it will cause harm to me in the end, but I kind of really want to. I don't know. What I'm saying here is that Keiichi has gone further than I would. Possibly, I don't know. I've never been in this situation. Well, that's a lie, I have been in this situation. You know, Keiichi's going pretty ham here. I'm not exactly condoning murder. But everyone I think has those intrusive thoughts, and then it's just the taking away of the knowing that it's the wrong thing to do and believing it's the right thing to do, and then you don't have that. I mean, hell, even just isn't that what they say about sociopaths or psychopaths? I cannot remember which one. That part of it is not feeling that the rules of society apply to you. I believe that's a sociopath. I don't know though. And so you don't feel the guilt over doing bad things because, like murder, because you're like, well, not murdering is a rule for society, but it doesn't apply to me, so it's not one of my rules, so I don't have to do it. I'm talking out my arse here. I didn't struggle or grow tired at all chasing the clumsily fleeing uncle. No matter how much he ran, it was like trying to get away from his own shadow. He couldn't get away from me. Could easily aim at his back, his shoulder and his head, even from this unnatural stance. Each time I struck him, he wailed in pain and begged pitifully for forgiveness, but it didn't disturb my mind. I was neither excited nor plagued by hesitation like before. I felt sharp. I felt like a carnivore. Of course, so did the uncle, who was trying to run away because he didn't want to die. He didn't want to be eaten like a herbivore running with all its might, trying to get away. Despite all the attacks, despite all the hits, he kept on fleeing without even staggering. And despite the bad footing in the forest, he impressively never tripped over anything. But there was no need to admire that fact. It was simply proof that he was no more than an animal. If he was chased, he would run. If he was going to be killed, he would run. He bared his fangs at the weak, but couldn't oppose the strong whatsoever. He was lowly, vulgar, a diminutive animal. Such a puny little creature had harmed Satoko. Scar after scar to her body and mind, deep wounds that might not ever go away as long as she lived. Oh. My cold and calm emotions suddenly turned into bestial ones. My personality changed into something specialised for murder, purely to devour the diminutive animal in front of me. The uncle gave a puny little shriek, covered his head, and ran. I'm impressed by how much you can run. Fine, run as much as you like. I will be your death. I will choose the moment at my leisure. Your legs will hurt, your lungs feel about to burst, your head will hurt from a lack of oxygen. If you feel the pain has become worse than death, then by all means, stop any time. Without turning back, suffocating on his terror of the approaching death, he just ran shamefully onwards. He ran, but was chased, his head bashed with a metal bat, sweat and drool flying everywhere, blood clinging to him. From his mouth came the sounds of coarse, irregular breathing and high-pitched screaming that verged on crying. A plea for forgiveness to someone. I didn't know who. Each and every second was a second of atonement that I granted him. Now run. Run. Then fall and moan and die. Where'd you even crawl out of anyway? You were never here before. If you were never here, you never should have showed up. If you never showed up, our lives would still be fun and enjoyable. We would have gone to today's festival, waited for each other, and gone to the shrine laughing. We would have been playing amongst the stalls right about now. We'd be browsing strange food stores you only saw at festivals, trying to get prizes from goldfish scooping, ring throwing, or target practice. Mion would surely make it into a competition, and we, as a club, would have a grand time. And everyone would have been cheering for Rika's dedication dance, and everyone say how fun it was, and it'd give us energy for days to come. Fun, enjoyable, and funny, warm times spent with friends. And that would have happened, but it didn't, and now it's all smashed to pieces. There was no doubt that would be what the world was like if you never showed up. You were the obstacle, the mistake, the heresy in that world, but I would correct that mistake now. I would erase you and make it so that this last week never happened. Tonight was the Tatarigoroshi festival, the holy night where taking just one life was permitted in the name of Oyashiro-sama's curse. Looked like the Higurashi stopped crying at some point. When the Higurashi cried, everything would end. And the Higurashi silenced. Lowly one, the hour of atonement is at hand. The Higurashi have stopped their crying, thus it is the end. The end, the end, the end. You don't have to run away anymore. Die with those dirty brains of yours smashed everywhere. Oh. Lightning and thunder struck like an explosion. It was so loud it shook the ground and I smelled gunpowder. The response I got this time was clearly different from the one before. The metal bat crunched into the crown of his head. It was like the top of his head had caved in. The bat felt like it was biting him. Let me take a moment to say, gross. It had been the final killing act that visited him, when I didn't overlook the opening he left as his names gave out under him. I remained alert for a few moments, then thud, thud. He planted both knees in the ground and then fell forwards, burying his head in the ground. Ha! Been holding back my ragged breathing, but now it all came out of me like a dam bursting. My head was dizzy, light, and unable to maintain my balance. I leaned against a nearby tree. The uncle didn't try to guard his head any longer. After a disgusting sort of spasm, he stopped moving. Did I get him? Did I get him for sure? I fought back my exhausted urge to fall over where I stood, and drew towards him carefully, bat still at the ready. It was possible he was faking it and trying to wait it out. Should I check for a pulse? I realised right away, though, how unnecessary that would be. If I thought he might be faking it, I'd just have to keep pummeling him until I was satisfied. I fought back my ragged breathing again, and then I swung my bat far above and brought it down. Clunk. His body leaped like a bow, but he didn't try and cover his head. Then once again, I aimed for his head and swung. His reaction was the same this time. After spending a few moments making his head into mochi, gross, the hits gradually started to feel different, and it started to spray a filthy red, dark liquid everywhere. That was enough. It was definite now. I had absolutely killed him. There was no sense of accomplishment, nor one of regret. I didn't feel any anger towards Toko's uncle, nor pity towards Toko herself. Instead, right now, I was feeling like my heart had been stolen by the downpour. It began to rain at some point, and how comfortable it felt. The rainwater drenched my body and dripped down to the ground. The excitement within me faded as the rain washed away the grime. In exchange, my shoes were so wet they made splashing sounds. And despite abusing Satoshi's back like that, it wasn't bent very much. There were a few dents in it, probably from hitting the man, but nothing that would make it seem different from before. Instead, it had been stained with black, with red, with mud and blood. I'd still bury it with him. But that itself would be evidence. The one piece of evidence needed to prove that my delusions hadn't just been daydreams, and that I'd ended with Toko's uncle for all eternity. All right, Keiichi, calm your mind. The time for passion is over. Now is the time to be cold as ice. I needed to bury the body. But where was I? I'd simply followed the man as he ran into the darkness. Couldn't take a guess as to how far we'd run. It was already pitch black around us, and the only light I had to go on was a very faint light to the road a little further down. It was so dark out. I hadn't noticed the darkness until just now. My vision was so good I could see the man's ugly hairline. I could have counted the pores in his head. It was only now that I realised how much crazy strength I'd mustered at that moment. I went over to the streetlight. I looked up and down the road, desperately trying to figure out where I was. Oh no. This is the one road connecting Hinamizawa to the town. We were unbelievably far away from Toko's house. Had the two of us really won so far in distance? My surprise at that was accompanied by the knowledge of the miraculous fact that despite running so far and making so much noise, we hadn't come across anyone at all. There was a long way between here and the ambush location where I dug the hole. There was no way I could carry the body that far. Aside from that, The bike the man took it was still lying in the middle of that path. That would be an issue. The police could tell whose motorcycle it was by looking at its license plate, and they wouldn't just leave it at that. Thankfully, the corpse was in a dark forest. In terms of urgency, dealing with the bike would come first, and I wanted to get the shovel back from where I'd left it next to the hole. Shouldn't drag the boggy there. I would have to deal with it right here. Fortunately, the ground was like mud from the downpour, and was more sludgy here than where I was before. I might be able to dig a grave quickly here. Of course, my bike was still over where I'd left it too. It still wasn't over. Homicide had only been half my goal. The other half would be just as important as the first. I'd completely hide the body, not allowing a beginning to happen. I would erase the man like he never existed and regain the peaceful times we had before. I bent my head backwards and calmed my mind even further. The big water droplet stuck my brow mercilessly. Actually quite comfortable, and for a while I let my desire have its way. After confirming that I was sharp again, I started running through the rain. The motorcycle was in the grass at the roadside. Considering how it looked, pelted with rain and covered in mud, it actually looked like it had been there for quite some time. The plan was to drop the motorcycle into the swamp. The swamp was a bit of a walk from here. I lifted the bike up. Didn't think it would be so heavy. A little surprised. Once I had it upright, it was fairly easy to roll it along. Still, pushing this thing all the way through the swamp was really not something I wanted to do. I could no longer ignore my exhaustion, and it warned me numerous times of how far away the swamp was. This motorcycle, I wonder if I could ride it well enough. Once I got it going, it'd be basically the same as a bike, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it get me to the swamp quickly? Plan suggested by my exhaustion. The anxiety at getting on a motorbicycle for the first time withdrew. I turned the key and then you just kick this pedal, right? Yeah. It's on. And then I gripped the handlebars, first the right, then the left. Wow, maybe I twisted them too much. The bike lurched and did a wheelie like an angry horse. Lost it for a second, but it was just a problem of how much torque to apply. Let's try that again. This time, slowly, gently. That time it went well. It was strange to be on a two-wheeled vehicle that would go even if I didn't pedal. Odd, but I got used to it quickly. Mia told me once you could get a scooter license within a day, and she was clearly right. This is pretty easy. I need to throw the metal bat into the swamp too, but I didn't know how I'd pack the bat onto the motorcycle. Without much other choice, I stuffed it into the back of my shirt, feeling like a ninja carrying a katana. Put the tip down the seat of my pants and hunched over it wouldn't fall out. I got back in the bike and this time got going without any difficulty. Carefully pressed the button labelled light, and a rather strong light came on, illuminating the way forward. Probably really shouldn't have turned it on, but I didn't have any way of seeing at this point and had zero confidence I could ride through this darkness. As the rain came down on me, I maintained a precarious balance and inched my way towards the swamp. Along the way, I ran across a few people who seemed to be returning from the festival, but none of them had any interest in me. They either all soaked through the rain and hurrying on the way home, or had their umbrellas low and their heads down. Yesterday, I might have been wary of even news passers-by, but right now it didn't seem to be much cause for concern. In fact, it'd probably be less suspicious to be riding out in the open like this instead of sneaking around. More and more, though, I started to think of that idea as naive, brought on by my exhausted state. I climbed a steep hill. On a bike, the hill would have put me out of breath, but I just had to accelerate a little bit to climb the entire thing. Motorcycles sure are convenient. For a moment, its lights illuminated a sign before I passed by it. Onagafuchi Swamp. Good children do not play around here. Still, it wasn't like the way to the swamp was cordoned off by a metal fence or anything. Parents and teachers would get mad at you if they found out you were playing at the swamp, but some of the bad kids in my class apparently snuck out here sometimes to see the giant crayfish in the place. They talked before about how they go to the candy shop and buy some pickled squid, then just tie it to a fishing line and all the crayfish would come running. Once they got up to the bank, there was a tiny ritual shrine and traditional ropes on one of the trees. And as it swallowed the downpour whole, the blackened swamp had waited for me. If I slammed on the accelerator from the cliff-like stop I was on now, the thing would fly straight into the middle of the swamp. I had to be careful not to fall in with it. If I drowned and disappeared, man, what a stupid ghost story that would be. On the night of Tatarigoroshi, Sotoko's uncle's corpse was found in a thicket by the road leading to town, and Keiichi Maebara went missing. People would whisper I'd been demoned away. 5th year's curse would be a half-baked one. I got off the bike and twisted the accelerator as hard as I could. I let go just when it seemed like it dragged me forward. The bike shot off the cliff and was swallowed down into the swamp, leaving a far fainter splash than I'd imagined. Its surface was being pummeled by the downpour, and the muddy, filthy water was flowing into it. I couldn't even make out the motorbike I'd just thrown in there. It was pretty heavy after all. It would be quickly engulfed by the soft mud at the bottom of the swamp, and it'd be pulled deeper and deeper until it reached hell itself. I felt no reluctance whatsoever in throwing the man's motorbike down to the land of the demons, but I did have a tinge of regret when I did it with Satoshi's bat. The muddy water washed off the gore sticking to it, and it sunk easily. I'd sort of shared today's events with Satoshi, so I wanted to give it a quiet place to stay. That's how I felt. Started to feel more like returning it to the locker from before, so it could continue to keep watch over Satoko. Satoshi, Probably, well, misunderstood you. Satoshi listened quietly without nodding. I'm absolutely convinced now. You were the one who beat your aunt to death last year and saved Satoko. I always scorned you and called you a coward who ran away, but I was wrong. To the rest of the world, some deviant was behind that incident, but I know. That was something you did for her. And then you disappeared. You finally got back that piece and lost it within days. So I swear to you that I'll live life to the fullest from now on. Live it enough for the both of us. I'll live on as though this week, this day, never happened. But I'll never forget this short time we shared together for as long as I live. Didn't know what expression Satoshi made as he listened, but as someone who protected the same girl, I felt he had smiled and given me his blessing. And then, my hand moved its own accord, and the bat I hesitated to throw away left my hands and flew through the air. Yeet! Travelled its parabolic path, spinning all the while, and the swamp absorbed it without a sound. There weren't even any ripples when it hit the surface. The surface was tempestuous because of the downpour, and the bat was long gone. For a moment, I regretted having thrown it, but I realised that might have been what Satoshi had wanted. You're right. I still can't let myself give in to emotion just yet. I'd return for my shovel, get on my bike, dig a hole to hide the body, and bury it. Seemed like a simple sequence of events, but I felt extremely exhausted, and I had to do it all tonight. Satoshi left me with only advice that I needed to finish this up soon, then fell silent for eternity and disappeared at the bottom of the demon's abyss. I returned to the path I'd ambushed her uncle on. My bike was hidden, sleeping in the brush. I stood it back up. My whole body felt heavy, but I needed to finish by the end of the day, even if I had to whip myself to do it. Oh, I forgot something. I didn't just come here for my bike. The shovel was here too. Not good. I was zoning out. Every once in a while, if I let my guard down, my vision would almost go black. Pull yourself together, Keiichi Maebara. It's still not over. I went into the grove of trees and looked for the hole in which I'd hidden the shovel. Unfortunately, I'd hidden it deep in the forest, not wanting it to be seen. I know everything was black in the night, and I couldn't see anything anymore. I reawakened my fading consciousness, and realised just how big this annoyance really was. Wait, you can't be serious. The sweat the rain washed away before came back up to my skin. Deep in the forest where the streetlights could never reach, the fact that it would be so pitch black had been completely uncalculated. With this much darkness, even if I'd been able to kill him right away like I'd planned, I don't know if I could still have buried him without problem. What should I do? I simply couldn't find the shovel tonight. If I forced myself to go deep into the forest, I'd lose even my sense of direction and might actually get lost there. That might have been an exaggeration, but it was fully possible I'd trip over a tree root and sprain a muscle. Right, my house's storage room. There was another shovel there, the same fold-up kind. Can I go back to the house, get the shovel, and give up on finding the shovel tonight? It's not as though the name Maebara is written on the shovel. It seemed like an unusual item from an import variety store, made in another country, so I didn't want to leave that shovel here. But in this darkness, I couldn't do anything. Should give up and go back to the storage room. And there was an electric lantern in there. If I used that for light, I could look for it. But it was so extremely dark. Could I light the way with just the lantern? The light of a lantern in this dark light. I couldn't concern the possibility of it drawing eyes, and I doubted if I could find the shovel with the lantern's feeble light. Besides, I left the body there for a pretty long time already. My sense of fear, dulled through excessive exhaustion, finally reared its ugly head. Anyway, for now, the most important thing is to hide the body. A shovel being found wouldn't be a big deal, but a corpse? They found that. I'd share the same fate as Satoshi. First I go back to the storage room at home. I get the lantern. Now that it's gotten this dark, I might still need light to dig a hole for the body too. And I get the other shovel. Then I deal with the body first thing. Once that was done, I'd come back here, find the shovel and bring it back. I had to at least do that much, but I was so tired. But complaining was getting me nowhere. If I started getting complacent now, everything would have been to naught. At some point I'd sat down. I gritted my teeth and endured, lifting my heavy hips. The night was young. Of all the nights I'd experienced, none had ever been this long. When would it all end? The night was young. The lights at home were dazzlingly bright. Suddenly, they reminded me of how hungry I was. I checked the clock and saw that it was almost 7. Thought for sure it was 2 or 3 in the morning already. I was surprised at how messed up my biological clock had gotten just from this one night. There was a warm light coming from the curtains in the living room window. The worlds between here and what was beyond those curtains were so different. If only that man hadn't shown up, I would have been in that light. I'd still be excited from the festival, and I'd be talking to my parents about how much fun I had with all my friends. And then, even though I made a hot meal for me, I would have eaten way too much at the stalls, barely eaten any of it, and gone back to my room. No doubt I'd crawl onto my futon and easily let myself fall asleep. But right now, I was completely different. There wasn't a single ember of warmth from those weak streetlights. Right now, I was unconnected to any time spent with my family, and there was neither warm food nor the time to allow myself to sleep. My body exposed to the cold rain, I knew that I simply had to spur myself on to accomplish what I must. I realised how timid, how cowardly I was becoming. For what reason did I need to kill someone, even if it felt this terrible? I'd lost sight of my purpose. I selected the fastest, most fundamental way of saving Stoko, and had executed it without hesitation. That man was dead. He was gone. He'd never ever hurt Stoko again. We all thought frantically for days on end about Stoko's problem, and finally, with no options, we gave up, and I'd solved it in one night. By myself, without anyone's help. Right about now, Stoko would be making dinner for her uncle, despite not knowing when he'd return, and she might be spending the night trembling in fear of whether he'd yell at her how it tasted. But her uncle wouldn't come home. She wouldn't have to fear his wrath, nor let him make her feel sad. I see. I did it. I successfully saved Satoko. All I'd been thinking about for a long time was killing that man, and I'd forgotten the feeling that it was actually to save her. I did. I did something good. That's right. I did something good, didn't I? Felt hot tears coming from my eyes. That's when I first realised the exhaustion I'd been feeling was actually guilt. The blade of guilt for a while now had just been scraping away with its tip, hurting my heart. It hurt so bad I couldn't stand it. It was throbbing painfully. It hurt so much, it was so painful that I cried. I cried tears of joy at saving Stoko. I didn't know why really anymore, I just cried. My tears fell and fell. As I stood there for a while, coming to terms with those warm tears, my heart was comforted a little. All right, Keiichi Maebara, that's enough. There's nothing to regret or feel ashamed about. Both my body and mind were thoroughly exhausted, and that was a fact. It was only natural I couldn't feel anything. Even tomorrow and the day after that, I might not be able to feel anything for a while. But there was one thing that was true. There was the indisputable fact that I'd saved Satoko. One day we would surely be rewarded. One day I'd be proud of how distressing an enterprise I'd undertaken to get Satoko's smile back. And so that I could wait for that day, I had to put the finishing touches on this night. If I left it undone, everything I'd accomplished today would be for naught. I looked back up at the sky, which didn't look like it would stop raining anytime soon. Then I rubbed my eyes and summoned forth energy from my core again. How long did I plan on spacing out? This isn't the time for daydreaming. Someone could find that corpse this very moment. That pessimistic thought was proof of the very natural emotion of fear had returned to me. As I allowed the fear to spur me onwards, I went to look for the other shovel and the lantern inside the storage room. It was fortunate. I remembered what it looked like around the streetlight the body was near. With how dark it was quite possible I wouldn't have been able to look for it either. Didn't realise that when I left the place, so I didn't realise that when I left the place, so the idea of memorising the spot hadn't even crossed my mind. That's why I had to call it fortunate that I managed to get back to the body like this. The corpse was now located in a big muddy puddle. Half the thing had already sunk into the swamp-like pool of water. Only years afterwards, but there was an unused irrigation channel right nearby clogged with fallen leaves and dirt, and there was rainwater flowing in from there. My shoes had been awash with water for a long time now, so without any hesitation I stepped into the puddle. The whole muddy stream started flowing back, luckily. Couldn't leave any slight traces, like bloodstains. The rain was like a blessing from heaven. I checked around me, paying close attention, then turned off the lantern. It became pitch black, but my eyes got used to the darkness in a few moments, and once I managed to reach the street light on the other side, I was able to make out even faint lights. I stuck the shovel into the puddle right next to the corpse. The ground was even looser here than I thought, and the shovel's tip easily slid inside it. I had to hurry and dig. If I took too much time, I might lose my energy and strength again. I almost felt like digging a hole in the sand at the beach. It was easy to dig, but no matter what, the muddy water kept flowing in, covering the hole. The digging wasn't going as well as I'd hoped. I dug and dug and the water would go in, so I couldn't get a sense of how deep it was. The only way for me to measure it was to bury my own foot in the mud. I'm digging just fine. It's alright, don't be disheartened. Dig, dig, dig. Occasionally a car would come by on the road, and I'd hurry to hide myself in the trees. Everyone was only passing through. They wouldn't have their eyes peeled in this kind of darkness. I understood it logically, but I still couldn't help but hide. What was I really scared of? It wasn't quite that one of those cars would coincidentally happen to witness me here. It was that the distance I could spot cars from was gradually getting shorter. First I noticed the splashing sounds from really far away as cars drove through them. I started noticing them less and less, and with a car that just passed by, I didn't notice it until its headlights were upon me. Felt my senses growing duller by the second. If someone would take a peek in secret, as I was burying the body at the worst possible time, maybe I wouldn't even notice. The moment I thought that, I took a good look all around me. I roused all my half-asleep senses and searched for signs of presence nearby. What if I found someone was spying on me from the trees? Carnivorous feelings snarled at me, glaring. If there was, then I'd dig another hole. I'd come this far already. In order to achieve perfection, I didn't care how much more I had to pay. Didn't know what kind of face I was making at the time, but it was definitely a fervently glaring one. My 5 senses reached the conclusion that nobody was present. Didn't breathe a sigh of relief. How long had I been digging this mud out of here? It was deep enough for it to go up to my knees. Maybe this was enough. Maybe I'd throw the corpse in as a test. I swallowed, getting my breathing under control. Despite how much I'd beaten him, I was afraid of touching the corpse, so instead I dragged it by the feet to the hole. It took more than just a waggle and a tug to do it. But of course it did, considering this man's weight was easily 80 kilograms. I rallied all my strength and dragged him. At this point, my groundless fears that he might suddenly start moving again had vanished long ago. I definitely couldn't do that. I cannot lift a full-grown man onto his side by myself, and I learnt that in first aid training. Where I do not have the upper body strength to do that, and I also don't have the upper body strength to do the Heimlich maneuver, so if I have to save somebody from choking, the way for me to do it is to punch them in the chest. And it's alright if I give them a bruise, as long as they stop choking, because if I try and do the Heimlich maneuver from behind, I don't have that. I don't have the strength to do that. It's all the main stuff I can remember from first aid training is all the stuff that I can't remember how to do. His body fit perfectly into the muddy hole. It was more than deep enough. Alright, let's bury him. Quickly, quickly, quickly. I did a perfect job of burying it here. Everything would be over. I would hide it in the hole and none of this would have ever happened. When I realised I only had little farther to go to finish everything, I was racked with pointless anxiety, like I was in a race against time. It was like I was absorbed in a delusion that if I didn't bury the body quickly enough, it might come back to life. In any case, in a great rush, I poured mud and dirt into the hole. If I didn't work efficiently, someone might find me here. Until now, I figured if someone saw, I'd just kill them, but not anymore. I was arrested with such absolute fear that if someone saw me, it would be all over. As I finished the work off, it was a total mess. Splish, splash, squish, squash. I drew the surface of the shovel across the ground, trying to make it flat. It was completely covered in mud at that point. The rain washed the mud off my body, but not off my now blackened clothing. My body and mind were caked with panic, with fear, with rain and sweat and mud. My shoulders heaving, I threw down the shovel and sat down in the mud, so exhausted that I wanted to lie down right here and sleep. It was over. This time. For real. It was over. The man was now in the bottom of the wet dirt. Right this moment there were traces that this place had been dug up, but the rain of flowing muddy water would completely cover it all within moments. Yes, it was over. I did it. I did it. I did it, you motherfucker. And then I fell over backwards, face up in the mud. Raindrops pelted my face without mercy, but I didn't care. After staying there for a while, resting my mind, I got up again. It was over. So let's go home. You already buried the whole thing. Now it's like it never happened. Never happened, so there's no reason for me to stay out here and get rained on. I wobbled to my feet. I wouldn't use the shovel anymore. Considered disassembling it, but I didn't have the strength in my absolute exhaustion. Didn't really need to take it apart anyway. Dragging the shovel behind me, I headed towards the light. I stood up my bike. It had been laying on the grass by the road. Didn't know how I was going to get the still assembled shovel into the front basket. Put the shovel down the back of my shirt like I'd done with a baseball bat. Unlike the bat, the corner of it was on my back, making it very painful. Plus, if I relaxed my posture even a little, it would fall out behind me. I ended up having to carry the shovel in my left hand and ride my bike using only my right hand. Not only was I in a state of total exhaustion, this was a downpour. One hand on the handlebars. I was swaying to and fro like a drunk. But I didn't care. Even swaying like this, I got a little closer to home every time I pedalled. I saw two lights swaying slowly in front of me. A car was approaching. Oh no, I need to get out of the way. From far away in the shadows of the darkness, a car appeared. Its dazzling lights washed over me. The driver made a short honk of the horn to inform me I was in the middle of the road. I have to get out of the way. Kept telling myself that, but not only was I riding one-handed, I was exhausted, so I couldn't do anything. Wobble, wobble. I meandered about, not going to the right or the left. Driver decided to swerve out of the way right in front of me without lowering its speed much, steadily came towards me. Its outline grew larger in my vision, and telling myself again that I really needed to get out of the way. I jerked the handlebars in one direction, then lost my balance and fell over, bike and all. My whole body splayed out, and one foot caught on the bike. This was seriously bad. My drowsiness quickly vanished, and just as a cold sweat broke out on my skin, the driver slipped recklessly, spun the wheel to the left, made a counterclockwise U-turn, and came right up to me and stopped. The driver's seat door opened and the driver came out. You idiot, what are you doing here? I was pretty sure someone would yell at me like that. Oh my, look who it is. It was a woman's voice, and one I knew. I lifted my face off the ground and looked at her. Mr. Kano. Good evening. The moon is very pretty tonight. Maybara? It was raining far too hard to see the moon. Mr. Kano unfolded an umbrella and smiled as she spoke. That smile, for some reason, uncanny, like she'd seen right through me. Out of all the people I could have met, I got the sudden feeling that this is the one I wanted to see the least. What are you doing out so late? You're soaked and covered in mud, and no umbrella either. What is that? A shovel? She come here by a car. She wouldn't have known what I was just doing, and yet she smiled as though she knew everything. Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. She always makes that mysterious-looking smile, remember? Don't let her onto anything, lest you dig your own grave. Rumors say you're playing baseball with a golf club. Is that what the shovel's for too? Using it as an umbrella? Should tell a good lie here. If I could just do that, things would work out. When I went with Raina to go digging the treasure for the dam, digging for treasure at the dam, we forgot this there. And you went to get it in this downpour? When I left my house, I didn't think it would rain, so... Oh, it's been raining for a while, though. You've been out for quite some time, haven't you? Well, yes, I was kind of wandering around. Even so, you came from that direction, didn't you? Dam is in the opposite direction, you know. Mr. Kano was clearly aware that something exceedingly abnormal was happening with me, and as she played a little word game, she was enjoying driving me into a corner. Maybe she had a vague guess, just from the situation of what I'd been doing. My timing really sucked, to run into her of all people, of all times. At the very end, I could only be frustrated at my terrible luck. I'd done so much, and the end was literally right around the corner, so why at the very end did I run into her of all people? What do you do, Keiichi Maebara? You're still holding something that could be a dangerous weapon. Will you silence Mr. Kano? Even if it would be simple to kill Mr. Kano, dealing with a car she come in afterwards would be an issue. I couldn't drive a car, completely different from a motorbike. But even if the car was here, as long as there's no proof I killed her, in tonight's downpour without any prior planning, or by coincidence, a hit and run, as long as I didn't drop any handkerchiefs with my initials on them, they'd never know I killed her. Black flame quietly smouldered and raged in the core of my body. That's a scary look. Did I tease you too much? Mr. Kano started to laugh by herself, then thankfully stopped talking about it. But the dark clouds in my... Oh, sorry. I thought we were about to crash for a minute there. Leaving that aside, how long are you planning on crawling on the ground with your bike like that? Would you mind moving out of the way? If I moved, she'd leave. So I tried to get the bike up and out of the way, but then twisted my ankle in it and fell over. Ow, shit. It was a sharp pain in the ankle I'd twisted. This is nonsense. A sprained ankle now? Oh my, are you alright? Did you twist your ankle? Mr. Kano squatted down and took a good look at the ankle I keep rubbing. She compared it to my facial expression, apparently trying to gauge how bad the wound was. Can you stand? I didn't expect to, but I couldn't even stand up. It was all I could do to shamelessly wriggle on the ground like a caterpillar. Mr. Kano looked at her watch, then at her car, and after thinking for a moment, opened the passenger seat door. I've done this before, not falling off my bike, but falling in the rain, and luckily it was a few shops down from a Boots, but I literally had to hop. Nobody helped me, of course. Loads of people saw me fall over. Nobody helped me. I had to, no word of a lie, with my backpack, hop down the road to the Boots, basically hop into the Boots, buy an ankle support, and then luckily the guy was like, do you want to use my chair to put it on? So I was able to put my wrist strap on, my ankle strap rather, and hobble out of the Boots onto the bus. But God, it was a nightmare. I was still basically hopping everywhere for a few days because my ankle hurt so badly. And then gave me his shoulder to stand up with. I'll take you home. I do feel bad since it's almost like I hit you. I'm sorry. I wouldn't just leave you there. It's a good thing I'm a nice person. Nobody good has ever called themselves a nice person, but that would have been a terrible thing to say to someone holding me up like this. I took Takano's hands and sat down in the passenger seat. Mr. Kano went around the back and looked at my bike on the ground. Don't suppose we could take the bike home tomorrow? I could clearly tell from her face he should it would be a pain, since it'd be heavy and it would get her car dirty. But my bike has the name Maebara written on it. Couldn't leave it out here like this. Well, can you somehow put it in the car? I sort of need it. The trunk is already full. If I put it in the backseat, it'll get the seats dirty with mud. Well, given how you're already in here, it's already dirty, I suppose. I turned back to the back seat and see someone's folding bike there already. It still looked big enough to fit my bike in there as well. My expression reflected my thoughts, and the exact thought seemed to get through to her. Alright. I'll put it in here for you. I'll be really nice, but just for tonight, okay? Mr. Kano continued with her mean jokes, but she hoisted my bike and loaded it into the back seat for me. The mean jokes were one thing, but couldn't she do something about that eerie smell of hers? Even more important than the bike, I didn't want to leave the shovel here. The shovel could be directly connected to the buried body and to me. Sorry to ask another favour, but could you get my shovel too? Mr. Kano gave me a clearly dubious expression. A shovel? That's fine with me. Is it important? The more I talk, the worse it gets for me. That's how I felt, so I didn't force myself to answer her. Eventually outlasted by my silence, Mr. Kano gave a short shrug and sighed. Right, I understand. You need your shovel, right? You don't need to make such a mean face. Mr. Kano brought over the shovel that was lying in the middle of the road, clutched it like he'd never let go of it again. Mr. Kano watched me with a puzzled look. Okay, let's be off. Mr. Maebara, you live at the Maebara Mansion, don't you? Why does everyone call my house the Maebara Mansion? Because it's actually a mansion. Must be nice to be rich. As she spoke, Mr. Kano pulled the handbrake and stepped on the gas. After making a skillful U-turn using the shoulder of the road, she steadily increased in speed. From the rearview mirror, that accursed place seemed to melt into the darkness. Reed? Huh? I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you. What was that? Mr. Kano suddenly tried to say something to me, but thoughtlessly I didn't catch it. Looking ahead, Mr. Kano said the same thing one more time. The body. How well was it buried? I thought my heart might beat out my chest, but I didn't let it show. But my lungs were squeezed tight, and I couldn't breathe. What are you talking about? When burying bodies in mountains like this, you have to bury it fairly deep, because wild dogs will often smell the corpse and dig it out. Some human bone or wild dog brings back in its mouth leads to an incident being uncovered. Please head out to a stretch of mountains. It actually happens pretty often, you know. Pound, pound. Huge rusted bells started clanging in my head. Had I buried it so deep I could say it absolutely wouldn't be found? The answer was no. I was in such a rush to bury him and get it over with that I couldn't deny having possibly buried it too close to the surface. Wait, anyway. This woman, how does she know? She just passed by here in a car by coincidence. We ran into each other by coincidence. She'd been watching the entire thing from the trees. Once I left, came back in a car. Didn't make logical sense. So then, why? Keiichi Maebara? That's it. You need to kill her. My entire body reawakened and I could feel my pupils dilate. Couldn't possibly beat her to death with a shovel in such a small car. Then I'd use my hands and strangle her. But she was driving right now. If I strangled her, we might get into an accident. Then suddenly, Mr. Kano turned and looked at me. What, no real retort? For a moment I was surprised. What was she talking about? You seem we're not a very good match, Mr. Kano said, disappointed, returning her gaze ahead. Repeated the words she said a few times in my head, and finally realised she meant it as an off-colour joke. Didn't know whether it was really a joke, but I wouldn't be able to fool her, no matter how many lies I told. Right now, with her driving a car like this, I couldn't kill her. I'd have even a hard time doing it when I got back to my house. The moment we met, that had been my best chance. To have missed it so easily, it hurt. After that, Mr. Kano didn't say a single word. The car was completely buried in an almost suffocating silence. What kind of woman had I run into? With everything that had happened today, I managed to pull it off, and at the very end of it, I just had to go home and go back to sleep. What bad luck. As my sleepiness gradually overtook me, the anxiety felt suddenly started to matter less and less. What I would have said is that went out for a walk, then went out to get the shovel, decided to go for a walk on the mountain since you were out, and then got lost in the rainstorm. Actually, yeah, I don't know. Is this alright, Keiichi Maebara? You probably should not leave this woman alive. Right now, I'm tired. She stepped on the brakes and I jerked against my seatbelt. That woke me up. Thought I must have fallen asleep by accident. I looked out the window and there was a big building with faint lights on. It was really dark out, but I knew immediately it was my house. I'll go get your folks for you. Would you mind the place for a few moments while I'm gone? Don't make fun of me, please. Besides, look, I'm fine now. I can walk by myself. Oh my, you were in such pain before that you had to get me to carry you. Did you just want a pretty lady to be nice to you? As Mr. Kano spoke, she left the car and opened up her umbrella. The sound of falling raindrops was fierce as always. I carefully reached down and rubbed the ankle I twisted. There was still some pain and little weirdness, but they weren't that bad anymore. Rather than being happy about how light the wind was, I first regretted the whole thing. If I hadn't twisted my ankle, I could have taken the option of killing Mr. Kano right then and there. Probably wasn't much doubt that Mr. Kano was convinced I was involved in some sort of crime. If she knew about everything happening with Satoko, then she might have even guessed I'd killed someone. Click! Mr. Kano opened up the passenger side door for me. You sure you don't need my shoulders? Wouldn't mind doing it for you again. I ignored her and answered by getting out of the car by myself. The rain was still pretty intense. I got my bike out of the back seat. I was a bit curious who the other bike belonged to, but that didn't matter right now. I let Mr. Connor hold the umbrella over me, then pushed my bike up to the front door. Thank you, very much. I'll be fine now. My ankle hurt so much earlier, and it still did, but it aggravated me that I hadn't even been that bad. It's really seriously terrible luck. Alright, I'll be leaving then. Keep it a secret that we had a nice evening drive together by ourselves, okay? Especially from Mr. Jiro. From Jiro. Jiro? Oh, she meant Mr. Tomitake. Suppose she calls him by his first name. His full name must be Jiro Tomitake then. And then the other bike, the folding one in the back, that I didn't take care about at first, suddenly came to mind. Hey, excuse me, you're from Hinamizawa, right? And the day before yesterday, as I walked near the dam, half asleep, Mr. Tomitake had talked to me, and the bike he'd been riding, it was... That bike in the back belongs to Mr. Tomitake, doesn't it? Mr. Kano's eyes, I think they sharpened for a moment. Why do you think that? I saw it when I met him before. Frame stood out to me. But wouldn't that be odd? Do you think it's possible for this to be Jiro's bike? Odd, huh? Mr. Kano, her hair elegantly fluttering, peered into my eyes. Well, there are no bed and breakfasts in Hinamizawa, are there? Jiro would need to be staying in town. Is that so? Well, I guess that's right, huh? Can't really walk from town to Hinamizawa, can you? And there are no buses either. You at least need a bike. She didn't need to tell me that. That's why Jiro was riding a bike. For Jiro's bike to be stowed in my car? And him not in there? It'd be strange, wouldn't it? Being Jiro was in Hinamizawa, without a bike. Have to have left Jiro somewhere and put his bike in the car, wouldn't it? Would make sense. As she spoke, Mr. Kano made eyes like a hawk. Unfortunately, I didn't really understand what was so odd. What about that is odd? Aren't you and Tomitake friends? I don't really think it'd be strange for there to be some reason you had his bike in your car. But it would be. What I mean is, Jiro and his bike being in different places in Hinamizawa wouldn't make sense. For those reasons, it means his bike can't be his. Do you understand now? Mr. Kano's roundabout way of talking was hard to comprehend, but that eeriness I could feel, that vague dreadfulness, didn't like it at all. But the most wild, instinctive part of me warned me not to pry. That's my bike. Jiro picked it out for me though, so I can't deny that it looks alike. Ah, I see now. Thought it looked similar. You and I never saw each other tonight. Now she was talking about something completely different. What are you talking about? You and I never saw each other tonight. Stayed there, not knowing what to say, and Mr. Kano repeated her eerie, succinct phrase to me again. You and I never met this night. You and I never saw each other tonight. Something cold and unpleasant crawled up my spine. I knew, because I'd killed a person with my own hands before. Before I came to the conclusion I'd only one chance to beat this woman to death to keep quiet, and I couldn't hesitate, so I could tell that she'd arrived at the very same conclusion. My instincts warned me again. Wish I'd never met this woman. Faint sense, like a rotten smell, drifting from this woman, was no doubt the exact same sense that I was giving off. A very peculiar aspiration, the lack of uncertainty at taking a human's life for that purpose, one that only those who've risen above everything had. Actually, maybe I should have called that nausea. It meant, and I didn't know how to explain this well, but Mr. Kano was the same as me. In other words, someone who shouldn't have been here. Someone I couldn't have let anybody know was here. Someone who nobody would have wanted to see. And now that we had, we could calmly pretend as though we never met. Yes, which meant that, just like I wanted to have nothing else to do with her, she didn't want anything to do with me either. And she too wanted to make it so that we never met. Both of us wished for the same thing. Our desires were the same, which meant Mr. Kano's suggestion was extremely practical, and that I couldn't outright refuse. If that's fine with you, then sure, whatever. You and I didn't meet this night. You're right. That would be best for you too, wouldn't it? Why do you think that? The eyes! Are you seriously asking me that? You can't figure that out on your own, boy? She cut me off with the condescending word, boy! Oi! Right in front of my house, in a place most unsuited to killing. And yet, there was a frozen thirst for blood coming from both of us. I would be killed right here, right now. Then I should have definitely beaten her as we passed each other. A damp, greasy sweat broke out on my body. That's fine. If you want me, then you can come any time. And when I made up my mind, she shook her head elegantly, then turned on her heel. Good. I'm a kind person, after all. What was good? How? Because she was a kind person? Was that it? I didn't get it. Mr. Kano got into a car. We didn't exchange any words of parting. I'd performed a massive feat, the killing of Toko's uncle, and yet I didn't feel any accomplishment. On the holy night of Oyashiro-sama's curse, on which the taking of another's life was allowed. On the terribly rainy night when the demons wandered as agents of Oyashiro-sama's will. The demons were never supposed to meet, but suddenly they did. The demons parted ways triumphantly. There was no reason for them to fight. Both their objectives had already been accomplished. With the rain hitting me like a waterfall, my eyes met with Mr. Kano's through the car window. The female demon, her mouth twisted into a distorted, fearless smile. It was too late to kill her. Far too late. The very first moment we saw each other, had been my last chance. And now that we'd parted like this, I was acutely aware of it. I should not have let her live. She beeped a horn quickly, then a car drove away into the deluge. The one woman who knew what really happened tonight disappeared into the dark. As long as she was alive, this night would never really end. Just get into an accident, I thought to myself. In this downpour, slip on some mud or something and fly face first into a tree and die. That wasn't a delusion, a wild flight fantasy. It was an earnest wish. Yes, it was a command. Die. Die. Keep your mouth shut for eternity. Because I have no doubt you're wishing for me to die all the same. My curse upon her faded emptily as Mr. Kano's taillights disappeared into the utter darkness. The car's lights were completely out of sight now. Even the sound of the engine faded into the sound of the heavy rain and was inaudible now. I too turned on my heel, to draw the curtains on this insane night, to open my front door and end it all. I began walking towards the front door. It was covered in mud and made a squishing sound with every step I took. Squish, squish. Don't worry, Keiichi-Maebara. Squish, squish. She'll die. Squish, squish. Her end will be as miserable as she is. I'll throw her into some flames alive and let her dance until she's burnt to a crisp. I'll burn her to ashes in the fires of hell itself until she's roasted as much as she deserves. I wish. I really do. Squish. Huh? Just now. I hadn't taken a step. And yet... Oh no! Oh. Okay. This, to me, is genuinely, no word of a lie, the most terrifying part of this entire game series. And it snuck up on me so badly. The two things that scared me most in this game series were Mion climbing up from under the hospital bed when, you know, she should have been dead. And this. Without emotion, I turned around. There was a footprint that wasn't my own, then it was obvious someone else was behind me. Was someone else there? I was sick of this. Whoever it was, I was sick of everything tonight. This time, I would kill them. I'd kill them without a second thought. I wouldn't hesitate to turn around and dig another hole. But fortunately, there was nobody there. I wasn't going to have to kill any more people tonight. This night, I couldn't handle any more of it. Even if I heard an extra footstep each time I stopped, I put it down to me just being tired. The third footstep, it freaks me out so badly. The third footstep does. It's one of the things that terrifies me a lot. Right, I'm gonna pause super quickly because I'm gonna go get another drink because my throat really hurts. I spill apple juice all down the front of my microwave. Because I am a great person. God, that was a heavy one, eh? Whoa, fuck me. Hello? Do you need the hospital or the fire department? The fire department. Is there a fire or some other accident? Please speak slowly and calmly. I think it's a fire. This is the rest area on the highway. Can see a ton of fire and smoke coming up from the mountains behind us. Nobody goes back there, so I don't know why anything got lit on fire. Anyway, I figured I should let you know. Could turn into a forest fire. I understand. I need to know exactly where you are, so please tell me your exact name, a phone number we can use to get in touch with you, and the exact location of the fire. Notice from the fire department headquarters. We have a report of suspicious fire on the western slopes of the mountain. Given its distance from the road, it could be a couple's bonfire or someone unlawfully burning trash, like my neighbour. Location is deep in the woods. No homes in the area, but the fire could spread. Immediately go to the site to verify. Is this a fire station? This is the district fire department branch. We arrived moments ago at the reported area. Fire confirmed to be a burning oil drum left in the mountains. Fire is coming and there's no chance it will spread. And, well, an oil drum. I think it might be a person. Like, a person burned with kerosene or something. Well, I think maybe we should get the police over here. Ah! There's no mistaking it. This is a person. Dun dun dun. This year's curse, then? That's what it looks like. He kills them differently every year, but this is particularly conspicuous, isn't it? Clawing out your own throat? That isn't normal. Leave the rest of the old man in forensics. I'm sure we'll find some suspicious drugs. Thank you. Thank you for your hard work. Oh, Mr. Oishi, Komiyama and the others have arrived. Mr. Oishi, much appreciated. Well, it seems we have a pretty crazy one this year. Yes, we've been outsmarted. I was absolutely under the impression Teppei Hojo would get killed tonight. Who is the deceased? Jiro Tomitake, photographer with a hobby for coming to Hinamizawa a few times a year. We didn't even have him marked. Wonder what happened. Did they realise we were watching the Hojo residents the whole time and decided to switch their target? Maybe. We sure flubbed this one. There are no problems with Teppei Hojo. Correct. His daughter left for the festival in the evening, and a little while later he left on his motorbike. His daughter came back first. Wait, has he not come back yet? Is he still out drinking somewhere? Mr. Oishi, are you there? Call from Chief Jakasugi. He's on the line in car 1. Rinning yikes, am I right or am I right? I really do need a yikes emoji. How many chapters have we got left in this? I'm just trying to think. I'm not going to be able to get another chapter done in 45 minutes, but I might be able to do half a chapter. I'm just trying to work out how many we have left in the game. 3 plus the after party. Well, we're going to keep going. And we'll see. At first I thought it was a dream. I was staring at the strange sheet, not really understanding what it was. That was all. I didn't go after it, nor did I ridicule it. Strange sheet? The fact was that the boring view was the ceiling on my own room, but I didn't realise that for a fairly long time. Yes. I thought I had been dreaming, but I'd actually been staring at the ceiling the whole time. Lethargy induced by the voices of the cicadas. Even after I realised I was awake, I couldn't draw forth the energy to sit up. Everything I could see, everything I could hear, everything was like a television broadcast that had already ended. It was hot, so hot I could choke on the heat. My back was moist with night sweat that felt gross. Unable to endure it any longer, I tossed my futon, and finally blood started coursing through my brain. I lazily recalled the long day I had yesterday. The reality, as I lay here listening to the voice of the cicadas, and yesterday, so different from it. In order to kill Satoko's uncle, I'd rehearsed, formulated a plan, and dug a hole. Who... Was it the oil drum that clawed out its throat, or was there a third one? Sorry, I got distracted there thinking to myself. Because last year, Tomitake was found on the road having clawed his throat out, and then Takano was the one who was burnt in a pot up in the mountains. It was very hot and I was tired, wasn't I? When evening came, I went to school and called him out on the phone. I panicked for a moment when he asked where the police station was, but it worked out, and then I awaited him and swooped down. Couldn't remember anymore what sort of emotions I'd let control my body. In any case, it didn't go smoothly, but I did it. It was very hard to dig the hole for the body. The feel of the rain pelting down on me, I don't think I'll ever forget it. The rain, the mud, and the sprays of blood. The sensation of floundering in a swamp. When I met Mr. Kano on the way home, that wasn't good, no matter how I interpreted it. It was the most misfortunate and uncalculated thing that had happened that night. Everything would have been perfect if only I hadn't encountered her. I was just riding my bike with my shovel in one hand, through the downpour, utterly soaked. There was no way someone could surmise I was a murderer burying a body from just that information. Now that I was thinking calmly, napping under the morning sun, that's what I thought. Still, the more I think about Mr. Kano's eyes, it seemed like she understood. Mr. Kano, she knew that I'd killed someone, buried them, and that I'd been on my way home, exhausted. Mr. Kano wouldn't gain anything from selling me out to the police. That didn't mean I could hiccup at ease. I should have killed her. Cross such a bridge to get my tranquil life back, and I finally achieved it as a result. But now, for the rest of my life, for all the tranquil days starting today, I'd have to live in fear of when they could suddenly end. I may have twisted my ankle, dulled from total exhaustion. The fact that I couldn't make the snap judgment I needed to, I regretted it more and more as time went on. You didn't have a choice, Keiichi Maebara. Didn't have any choice at the time. You were tired. You were a mess. Even if you'd made the decision, you might not have been able to kill her. She might have just beaten you instead. In that sense, parting ways uneventfully could have been the safer option. No matter how sharp Mr. Kano's intuition was, she had no proof. Suspecting me didn't amount to evidence by itself. Logically, I know that, but that doesn't mean I have nothing to worry about, does it? Just worry about it when the time comes. Now isn't the time to be worrying. It's the time to be smiling, right? You accomplished so much just to gain a new life starting today, didn't you? Then you should be happy at this new morning. If remembering the past is too hard for you, then just consider everything up to yesterday as having never happened. You said so yourself. You bury it all like it never happened. Well, your wish came true. Everything before yesterday never happened. So be happy, Keiichi Maebara. Yay. Stuck up my hands lazily. Felt a little silly for me to be the one doing it. I heaved a sigh from deep in my belly. The sigh got my lungs moving. Felt like I hadn't been breathing until just now. It wasn't enough to admonish myself over. All the dice that could be thrown had already had been. And the numbers that turned up weren't bad at all. If I lost with those numbers, I'd just have to give up, I guess. Grabbed the chest of my pyjamas and flapped it back and forth. Cool air flowed over my sweating body. Okay, nothing before yesterday happened. Nothing. Nothing at all. I'd forget it all. Yesterday was all a dream. What time was it? About midday? Getting myself up and going to school this late seemed kind of absurd, but I needed to go. Felt like going to school would be the first step into my peaceful new life. Didn't care how late it was, I would go. Go to school right now and get back to the life I'd retaken as soon as I could. My lazy body immediately became later in thought. I rolled up out of the futon, bounced on my knees, and leaped upright. Nice, stuck the landing. Stuck out my chest with pride at my gymnast-like pose and took a deep breath of fresh air. Brisk morning air had been gone for a while, replaced by the crisp air of summer. Downstairs I got a stern talking to by my mother. Where were you last night? When did you get back? You need to tell me when you won't be home for dinner, things like that. But considering the importance of what I'd accomplished yesterday, a little scolding was no problem. In fact, it even felt like the sort of thing that would happen in such a peaceful life. I listened with an irresponsible smile and stepped out into the sun high overhead. It was around the time lunch break would be ending. Everyone would probably be worrying about me. Didn't go to the festival and now I wasn't at school? Well, maybe they weren't too worried about it. Since they'd have gotten a small piece of news, but a happy one, from Satoko today. Yes, the small piece of news that her uncle hadn't come home last night. Satoko would probably live her days of nervous tension for a while, thinking he might still come home, but eventually those days would end, and finally Satoko too would realise her uncle was never coming back, and then Riku would quietly invite her. She'd say, "You can live with me again," and everything would be back to normal. Our lives would go back to how they were before that man appeared. Satoko would start wearing that extraordinary smile, complete with those protruding canines, and fool everyone with those traps she was so proud of. Probably be her first hug out of everyone, but I wouldn't be mad. That time I actually said cheers of joy at the return of something so normal. Satoko, she'd gradually go back into that meddlesome personality of hers. I mean, my lack of useful life skills was already completely exposed. I wondered if I'd ever be a match for Satoko. That'd be such a pleasant thing to see, too. With such warm, fuzzy predictions, I didn't feel bad for going to school so late. In fact, I wanted to run there now to get there as soon as I could. Instead, I decided to favour the peacefulness of just going to school like normal without running. The world I'd obtained for myself, that gave me joy just by walking like this. Yes, the world beginning on this very day was something I had won. Without that monumental feat yesterday, I'd never been able to come to school so cheerfully today. The school gate came into sight. Just then I heard the principal ring the bell to mark the end of lunch break. It was a clear, refreshing sound. I stopped myself and let myself take it in. Tap. I stopped suddenly, so there was an extra footstep. With a noise, the blessedness I was feeling throughout my whole body withdrew into any pore it could find. And as if to replace it, I felt like hundreds of hairy caterpillars were climbing up my feet. I turned back, but of course nobody was there. A single footstep could have easily been my imagination. But the footstep felt so ominous. That extra footstep I'd heard after seeing Mr. Kano off last night. With everything that happened on that insane night, I didn't mind something like that happening once. It'd been a hell of a night after all. In fact, having just one hallucination was pretty fortunate. But those footsteps should have ended with yesterday, so if I heard them again today, there was really only one thing it could have meant. Last night still wasn't over. It was still going. Still. That insane night, forever. The step I heard, just that one extra footstep, was quietly ridiculing the nonsensical notion that the world starting today was a completely different one from the one that ended yesterday. My classmates playing in the schoolyard all vanished inside like the tide going out. When I approached the school, it felt like that warm fuzzy scene had ended, and it didn't feel good. At the entrance, I took a quick look in everyone's shoeboxes. Soko Hojo. She was here. Mion was here too, and Reina, of course. Even Rika was here. Tomitake and Okamura were here. In fact, I didn't see any missing classmates. Those shoes missing, they'd have to be my own. Took my shoes off and stuck them in, then took out some slippers. There wasn't a single pair left in the shoeboxes anymore. With that, they returned to their rightful state. But as I stepped up onto the wooden floor, I noticed there was just one pair of slippers left. Huh. Whose? Satoshi Hojo. Satoshi, who'd never been to school since disappearing last year. Till now we committed the exact same act of violence, but I guess in the very end it went differently. You couldn't make it to school, but here I am. I didn't repeat the same mistake you made. I wasn't about to let myself feel superior about that. In fact, I felt an odd sense of familiarity with him. A misfortunate bond, with someone I'd never met, due to following the same fate. I headed down the hallway towards the usual classroom. I felt like it had been a whole year since coming here. Hey, did you forget Keiichi Maebara? Satoshi Hojo didn't really disappear on the night of Tatarigoroshi, did he? Satoshi Hojo disappeared a few days later, on Satoko's birthday if I was right. I didn't know what day it was, but I couldn't say for sure I'd avoided Satoshi's failure, unless I remained here past that day, was still living in that night of insanity. The teacher still hadn't come to the classroom. The other door clattered open, the one the teacher wouldn't use, so everyone turned at once to see who'd arrived. Everyone looked pretty vacant. Suppose I'll greet them. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Do thank you for coming all the way out here today. Hoo-hoo. Silence. When I started to think I'd fallen flat, someone finally started laughing for me. Good morning, Keiichi. Pretty energetic today. Yeah, energetic. Maybe you haven't got out of the festive mood yet. Hearing Mion and Reina's cheerful voices made me realise how dumb those dark feelings I'd been having at the entrance really were. Hey now, festive mood? I wasn't at the festival at all, remember? Before I could say that, Rika smiled at me. Keiichi, did you make sure to watch my dance? Dance? Yep. You saw it just fine. Didn't you see how big an applause he gave you? And he ignored it when that troublemaker Shion came up and made a pass at him. Take that, Shion. Wow, that felt good. Mion starts laughing at the memory as she slaps me a few times on the back. So, how did that target practice contest turn out in the end? Tomito was facing me and talking. There was nobody behind me. Meant he was talking to me. Tomitake turned up dead last. Everyone had a good time at this punishment game. Weren't you supposed to be the one in last place, Rika? Such a turnaround when you pulled off getting that chewing gum. Should have expected that from a member of my club. It's fantastic. Crying at a time like that is a feat only Rika would be allowed to do, said Okamura, breathing heavily from his nose. In my direction. Everyone laughed. If anyone but Rika had done, it would have been against the rules. Rika gave one of her nipa smiles as she listened to it. In my direction. Reina too turned towards me. Then, with a somewhat embarrassed smile, she whispered to me so only I could hear. Really, thanks, Keiichi. For what? That giant stuffed animal. I was really happy. It's nice and safe right at my bedside, and I made sure to give it a goodnight kiss before bed too. Ow. Class laughed at that, cheering and jeering. This whole time, the conversation went a little bit off. I wasn't quite getting it. What's this about a stuffed animal? What's this? Come on, we all worked really hard at the festival yesterday to get it down, remember? The gigantic stuffed animal. Gigantic stuffed animal. Rena seemed taken aback, but when she answered, she did it with a smile. We were having a hard time knocking over, so we tried aiming at the forehead and rapid-fire shooting and stuff, and then Keiichi got a whole bunch of guns ready beforehand and shot them all. It was so cool. Wait, who was this? All the people in the neighbourhood association, including the chairman, were praising you so much at the party afterwards. One of them said he'd fallen in love with your wayward words. Tokuzoki Miyoshi, the chairman of the children's committee, I think, said he wanted to entrust you with a few of the stalls at the next festival. Tokuzo is the head chair of refreshment booths. He's on the festival executive committee. Meibara is great at making things sound good, isn't he? Yep, whenever he talks about something, it seems a lot better than it actually is. Can't say that. Keiichi, you'd be a great salesman. If you did a bargain sale on bananas or something, I bet it'd go great. What have you been talking about? I mean, I didn't go to the festival in the first place. I swallowed those words. I didn't know exactly why, but in Hinamizawa, this is what happened. Yesterday, during the Tatarigoroshi festival, Keiichi Meibara had appeared, and he'd romped about with all the usual members of his club. He made a big scene at a few of the stalls, snatched a few sticks of takoyaki and okonomiyaki in his glee, rating each of them as delicious or terrible to get everyone excited. And they'd seen a gigantic stuffed animal at the Target's practice game, and everyone went after it. In the background, appropriately, I've got the sound of a police going past. And then I got a whole bunch of the cork guns, firing them in rapid succession, throwing each one away after using it, and admirably, I shot down the biggest stuffed animal there. And then I gave the stuffed animal, the proof of my victory, to Reina as a gift. Then our fun came to a close as we had to go see Rika's off-a-tree dance. There was a ton of people squeezed in there, and we all got separated, but we each managed to get into good positions to cheer Rika on from. And in the middle, when Shion came up and asked me to go hang out with her instead of watching the dedication dance, I refused, and stayed put, watching the dance until the very end. That's right, I will do dance and dance in the same sentence, because that's just who I am. But who? Who was that? Well, everyone's been saying it, haven't they? Keiichi Meibara. I had an urge to yell in anger at my classmates for having so much fun talking about the festival yesterday with Keiichi Meibara. The hell are you guys even talking about? Far stronger than that feeling, though, was the sheer uncanny nature of this reality I couldn't understand. A Keiichi Meibara who wasn't me was in Hinamizawa yesterday. As I threw away my humanity, turned into a demon, and was busy beating Toko's uncle to death, I was having a great time at the festival last night. What the hell? I had to suffer through so much, desperately holding back tears, getting so worn out in that downpour, digging holes, chasing, beating, killing, dragging and burying. Who was this Keiichi Meibara who'd ignored me so and spent such fun, carefree time at the festival, damn it? Who the hell stood in for me as I put my life on the line working so hard to achieve this treasure-like everyday life? There was another Keiichi Meibara besides me, then what was I? On the night of Tatarigoroshi, where one died and one disappeared in accordance with Oyashiro-sama's curse, there was only a demon who had killed someone. Dumbfounded as I succumbed to a horrifying possibility, I looked around at my classmates, to make sure there was nobody extra I didn't recognise amongst them, to make sure I wasn't amongst them. It was a horrifying thought that the real Keiichi Meibara hadn't overslept and had come to school on time, and that I, who was no longer Keiichi Meibara, had just waltzed in here. But no matter how much I checked, the only people here were ones I knew. The man I met every time I looked in the bathroom mirror, was not here. Okay, everyone, time to start the afternoon classes. Please take your seats. President, please lead the class. The teacher entered and everyone hurried back to their seats. Upon finding me, who was so stupidly late, she gave me a stern talking to, but I wasn't listening to it. Wasn't our old life supposed to start today? Something wasn't right. It was just strange. I was supposed to go back to my old fun life after yesterday. I'd set foot in an incomparably mysterious world that was completely different from both my old life and my recent one. Yes, this was without a doubt a different world than the one I'd been living in until now. There was no way such an absurd thing could be possible, but unless it was true, I couldn't explain anything that just happened. In this classroom I was surrounded by so many faces I knew, and yet I felt isolated. The cicadas sounded no different than they had before, but they seemed somehow false. The air was parched and dry too, making me think, was the air in Hinamizawa always this uncomfortable? Hey, Reina. What is it? We're in class. At the festival yesterday. About when would you say I got there? Huh? To be honest, I was pretty excited afterwards and I gobbled down some cans of beer. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, but I don't quite remember some things. For random babbling, it wasn't a bad excuse. Keiichi, you said you couldn't come at first, didn't you? You called Mion's house about it, right? That much. I called Mion and told her to take Satoko at my place, and so I wouldn't be able to meet up with them due to things I had to do. We all decided while we were setting up for the festival we'd invite Satoko. We wanted to bring her out someplace where she couldn't see her uncle for a little while. That was the same too. Mion said that when I called her, that everyone had already decided to invite her. And then we all went, me, Mion and Rika, to Satoko's house and brought her out. Satoko's uncle seemed like a really mean person. That part didn't matter. What I was trying to ask was, well, when did I meet up with you? How could you forget that? Keiichi, this is why I said to get a good night's sleep before the festival. Whatever, when did I meet up with you? Well, my sudden threatening demand, Reina was at a loss for words. Oops, I shouldn't have rushed that. I told her I was sorry. It was at the shrine grounds. It was unexpected. You were talking to Rika, weren't you? Yep. You were having a fun talk with Rika in her shrine maiden outfit, and then Reina came up and said, "How I'm taking you home." I was talking to Rika. And I asked, Keiichi, didn't you have something to do today? Then you pounded your chest and said it yourself, that letting loose at festival was more important than some silly errand. I didn't say that. Never said anything like that. Never even went to the shrine grounds yesterday to begin with. Never had the time to stop by a place like that. Went to dig the hole as soon as I woke up. I had a pretty hard time doing it. After that, I snuck into the school and made a call. I called him out and lay in wait, and then it started raining really hard. With that kind of downpour, the festival should have come to a halt. In other words, it ended then. From the time the festival started to when it ended, it would have been impossible for me to have swung by the shrine grounds. I was already there when Mion and the others dragged Satoko out and brought to the shrine, and I was talking to Rika. Then where would Rika say we met? Teacher went out to wash her hands, so I ran over to Rika's desk and asked her directly. With you? Yeah, we were talking to each other before Mion and the others got there, right? When did we see each other? When and where? I don't know what you're trying to ask. You know, yesterday I didn't really get enough sleep and my head's a bit fuzzy. Don't remember a thing. Looked like Rika bought into my babbling. We saw each other when the mayor and the others came out of the assembly hall. You were in front of the ritual implement storehouse. Huh? What? Ritual implement storehouse? Never heard a building called that before. Maybe I should have, but maybe I have it. At the very least, I wouldn't know where on the shrine grounds it was. Mayor got real angry at you, since you shouldn't go near holy places without authority, remember? Keiichi, did you forget that too? I was too scared to ask anymore. The more I asked, the more it became clear without any doubt that Keiichi Maebara was present at the Furude Shrine Grounds during the Watanagashi festival. The clearer that became, the more doubts, no, fears I had. Who on earth was I yesterday? Whoever that was, he had a good time in my place and managed to go the entire day without letting them notice I wasn't there. Oh right, when did that person leave everyone? This morning, my mother got mad at me for having stayed out so late last night, which meant at the very least that Keiichi Maebara hadn't come home while my mother was still awake. The festival would have been closed because of the downpour. If I recall right, when I went back to the house to storage room to get another shovel, I think the clock said 7. Since it was already raining hard by then, the festival would have had to close down before 7. If I'd returned that early, I would have definitely run into my parents. Or, at the very least, they wouldn't have asked me when I got back last night. So the Keiichi Maebara from yesterday, that meant he never went home. That meant the downpour happened, the festival was broken up, everyone left, but he didn't go back to the house. That means... When I arrived at the natural conclusion, a wicked chill suddenly froze my spine and climbed up to my brain. That meant Keiichi Maebara was the same as Satoshi. One day, he never went home. On the night of Watanagashi, he never went home. The downpour interrupted the festival, and on the way home, he suddenly disappeared. And I, who was dealing with a corpse, went home without a problem. I was so tired I wasn't even hungry, so I went up to my room without a sound and crawled onto my futon. Who was I? That much was obvious. Keiichi Maebara was me. There may have been another one, but that doesn't negate the fact that I was Keiichi Maebara. Then that other Keiichi Maebara was... what? God, we're getting into some Soma fields right now. The voice of the cicada steadily filling the classroom were beginning to bother me. Suddenly I laid eyes on Satoko. Satoko's expression was dark as always. She seemed completely exhausted. Had a life of agony she couldn't even imagine an ending to. What had last night been like for Stoko? Did she have fun with everyone and feel a little happier, if even for a moment? And when she went home, the end of her dream, she'd probably gone to sleep afraid of when her uncle would return. And then this morning, her uncle hadn't come home. And then she went to school. Right now, she must have been still trapped by the rotten idea from which she couldn't be saved, that her uncle would need her when she got back. But you can rest easy, Stoko. Your uncle won't ever be coming back. Couldn't tell her it was because I'd killed him. When Stoko realised that on her own, that her uncle would never return, then that would truly be the end of the long, insane night. That's right. I didn't do anything wrong. I did the best possible thing I could of as Stoko's Nini. Not an atom in my body regretted it. And look, calm down and think, Keiichi Maebara. From a certain point of view, isn't it convenient there was another Keiichi Maebara? I buried the corpse perfectly. A beginning wouldn't happen, but if worse came to worse and it got out and the investigation got to me, I now had a strong alibi, able to profess the fact that I'd been at the Tatarigoroshi festival. But accepting something so creepy and using it as an alibi. Still, if I proved I hadn't gone to the festival yesterday, it would do no good and a whole lot of harm. That was what left the really actually bad aftertaste. You'll forget about it, Keiichi Maebara. Everything that happened before today. So just forget about the Keiichi Maebara who was there yesterday too. Instead, let's gently watch over Stoko. For the day her smile returns. And the day, that would mark the end of the insane, all too long night. This is real freaky. This is getting to me a little bit. I have a bit of a thing about doppelgangers. I find them really unnerving. That's all for today, class. Please go straight back to your homes, everyone. President, if you would. Everyone stand up. At attention. Bow. Goodbye. I thought about many things and saw my thoughts dispersed by many other things. I didn't know whether or not that time had been spent worrying or daydreaming, but either way, it came to an end along with the class. Cheerfully, our classmates got their things and ran for the hallway. Mion, Reina, and Rika were packing up as well. What about Stoko? This whole day she seemed deflated. Well, her uncle may not have returned last night, but she wouldn't have known he'd never return. How much I wanted to express that fact to her. Stoko packed up a pencil box and math workbook messily, and after a dark glance at the clock, heaved a sigh, then went to leave the classroom. Then suddenly, somebody placed a hand on her shoulder and stopped her. What is it? I watered the plants like I was supposed to and got all the printouts done. Her words, possessed by a persecution complex, hurt. Spoke loudly so everyone could hear. Hey everyone, why don't we have a club today? It's been a while. Stoko always had to tend to her uncle, so club's been on hiatus. In our minds, our club was proof of a calm, peaceful life. By enjoying being together, I wanted to make Stoko realise her days of darkness were over. Okay, I'll do it. Yep. Well, I mean, I don't mind. If it's okay with Stoko. Under a condition. That was important. With everything up to her, Stoko gave a worried look. Come on, Stoko. It's been a long time. Let's go crazy. Well, I'm happy you feel that way, but my uncle might already be home. Thus spoke her darkened eyes, her mouth unmoving. Been choking on life every day for a while. You must be about to suffocate. It's not good for your mind or body. Once in a while, you've got to have some fun. Please leave it alone. It's not like I don't want to do club again. With one word, but, she looked down. Stoko, you know as well as anyone that it's more fun being with everyone, right? We're friends. It means we can spend time with each other. I mean, you had a great time at the festival yesterday with everyone, didn't you? Reina nearly said something, but she was too late. Keiichi, what are you saying? My arm on her shoulder seemed to weigh her down as she threw it off. When exactly was I playing and having fun at the festival? The only one having fun was you, Keiichi. Huh. Looked over to Mion for help, but now everyone was looking down. My instincts told me that Stoko hadn't gone to the festival, but Reina said it herself, that she went with me onto Stoko's house to invite her. Stoko left on the way there. She didn't go to the shrine. What? I realised the absurdity of what I'd just said with Stoko in front of me. She said her uncle was waiting at home and she couldn't have fun by herself when we were in front of the shrine. We tried to stop her too. We told her uncle said it was okay and that he wouldn't get mad if she had a good time. At some point, tears had begun welling up in Stoko's eyes. Stoko was so afraid of her uncle that she couldn't even allow herself time with her friends and went home. No, she was even afraid of letting herself have a good time with her friends. Keiichi, you must have it nice, having a blast at the festival all night. They told me you went all out, didn't you? I'm very envious. Smiling to herself, her tears began to fall. I must provide for my uncle. It's completely different from you, with how you let your parents do everything. Stoko. I'm so glad you enjoyed yourself at the festival. I'm so glad you had enough fun for me too. I mean, I want to participate in the club too. Making such a racket with everyone is so much fun. But right now I can't. Unable to withstand such violent emotion, a few teardrops slid down her cheek. But even though she was having such a terrible time, not once did she ever say it was hard for her. It was a sad, obstinate bravery. But the days when Stoko had to feel like that were over. Stoko didn't need to endure it, to bear it anymore. She should forget all about it now and smile. I was so frustrated not being able to tell her that directly. Instead, I said something that I'm not sure I should have said before I thought twice about it. Didn't come home, did he? The words were deeply meaningful to me, but I didn't know if Stoko understood them. Didn't come home. Who? Didn't come home last night, did he? Your uncle? What are you talking about, Keiichi? Stoko shouted with all her might. When has he not been there? When? Calm down. I mean, he didn't come home yesterday, did he? Don't understand what you're trying to say, Keiichi. Stoko, what are you talking about? I mean, that man, I killed him. Killed him yesterday. Killed him for sure. And I buried him. Buried him whole. He could never have returned to his house. Even yesterday, he was torturing me so much. He yelled at me. He shouted at me. Found fault with everything I did. He threw the dinner I made him on the floor. He dumped his bowl of miso soup on me too. It was hot. It was messy. And I cleaned all of it up. I cleaned. All of it. What? Our stories weren't matching up. But night? This morning, when he woke me up to make him breakfast, he got so mad at me. He'd have gotten mad at me whether I'd gotten up or not. Stoko. Rika went over to Stoko and said a few words of consolation. But Stoko angrily refused those words and thrust Rika away. Nini, come back. Crying, Stoko slowly walked down to the hallway. After a moment, Rika went after her. I couldn't stop thinking about the words Stoko had spoken while crying. I buried her uncle last night, but she said this morning. That was impossible. I buried him last night, so she couldn't have seen her uncle this morning. What was Stoko? At that point, I heard Mion's cold voice. Hey, Keiichi, what did you mean about Stoko's uncle? I said too much. I let my emotions get the better of me. Reina heard it too. He said Stoko's uncle didn't come back home. Why? Why didn't he come home? That's strange. Stoko's uncle was right there this morning, wasn't he? So why would you say he didn't come back? Keiichi, you've been saying weird things for a while. Suddenly, Mion and Reina started to speak in strange and creepy voices. What were they doing? What were they saying? Keiichi, is it somehow inconvenient to you for Stoko's uncle to be around? What are you talking about? Of course it'd be better if Stoko's uncle wasn't here. Yep, that's true, of course. If only he weren't here, right? Something wasn't right. Next thing I knew, Mion and Reina were smiling thinly, and their eyes were dark and muddy in a way I'd never seen before. And as their eyes met, that mud even seemed to fill the air. Stoko's uncle's an awful person, no doubt. I think we'd all be better off with him gone just as much as you do. But he's here. There's nothing we can do, right? Nothing we can do? Something's wrong. Something's clearly wrong here. What the hell was happening? After a moment, a chilly liquid-like feeling, as though my blood had been mixed with sherbet, crawled up my spine. No choice, I mean, of course there isn't, but then Stoko will never... If there's no choice, what would you do? Reina was trying to prompt me to say more. There really was no choice, so I killed him. I killed him to protect Stoko. That's... Leave him alone. I think things will resolve themselves soon enough. Stoko said her uncle was here this morning, so he's here. He was here yesterday and he's here today. She said so it's fine, right? Right? Mion and Reina were speaking unbelievably dismissively. How could they be talking like that? Mion and Reina, they were my friends and were seriously worried about Stoko's abuse, weren't they? They would never blurt out something like this. And I definitely killed Stoko's uncle. No matter what Stoko or anyone else says, I wouldn't acknowledge it, because him being alive was impossible. There's no way he was alive. It was impossible. And yet, since Stoko herself said he was here, then he was alive. I don't know why or how, but suddenly Mion and Reina were at my side, standing there silently. Let's go home, Keiichi. After we leave, Reina wants to go treasure hunting for the first time in a while. Mion is coming too. Keiichi, you should come along. Of course, you're not allowed to refuse. If words could freeze blood, then there was no doubt that they would have frozen me solid. Could hear it, a layer of thin ice, the sound of all my muscles tensing. And with them closely at my sides, we left the school as if they were police officers taking me away. They talked about silly things the entire way home, like they always did, but they always stood at my sides as if to prevent me from escaping. This was strange. But hang on! So... what? Because the police report, which one presumes to be sort of... what's what I'm looking for? Neutral report, say. Police report says that he left on his motorcycle and didn't come home. But Soteko's saying he is at home. And, you know, there's a good chance that we could have hallucinated, but the police report definitely said he didn't make it. The police report definitely said that he disappeared and that Tomitake, or Jiro, was the one who died, so... I'm confused. This is strange. Everything about this day was strange. Actually, it was strange ever since the previous night. Yes, thinking back, it'd been strange ever since killing Stoko's uncle. That creepy meeting with Mr. Kano was only the beginning. That insane night was still continuing. Yes, it still hadn't ended. What? What's wrong, Keiichi? Why'd you suddenly stop? Ah, sorry, it's nothing. When I stopped, it was distant, but I definitely heard them. An extra set of footsteps. Oh, he hates it, precious! That was proof. Proof that insane night hadn't ended. Mion left where she usually did, and finally we came to my house. Okay, Keiichi, wait here for me. Reina will come to pick you up soon. What was it? She was inviting me along on one of her oversized garbage treasure hunts at the dam site, right? But why now? Mion coming along was strange too. Mion may have accepted Reina's little hobby, but she hated fishing through garbage, so she'd never come with her before, and the location specifically being the dam site was a little creepy. Dam construction site was completely outside the flow of everyday life. It was so remote that no one ever went there unless they thought to in particular. Nobody lived there and there were no lights, so at night it got very dark very quickly. I was being forcibly invited there. There was no reason I had to fear Reina and Mion. Besides, wouldn't the trouble I'd make by refusing them be a pain to deal with? In that way, it didn't seem like going treasure hunting with them was a bad idea. But that insane night was continuing. Hadn't the sirens of instinct been wailing in my mind for a while now? Warning me that Reina and Mion were strange, that I needed to be cautious. The warning sirens were so loud it felt like my head would split in two. Ah, Reina, I actually have something to do. Something to do? Like what? Like what? It's just, I have something to do, okay? If you had something to do, why didn't you say it while Mion was here? I already told her to meet us at the dam site before we split up. Reina was smiling, but her words made her discomfort clear. Sorry, I just kind of missed the opportunity to say so. Really? You're lying, aren't you? You just made that up now, you liar. That's what Reina's eyes said to me. My head hurts. I might have a cold, so I want to go get it checked out and get some medicine. Really? That wasn't really a lie. My head did hurt a bit, so I wasn't lying. Reina, she couldn't figure out if my head hurt or not, just by looking at it. Freaky eyes! Then I guess that's that. Staring me in the eyes for a few moments, she fired a sharp needle-like stare at me. Tension in my body loosened and I felt like my knees might buckle. If you're going to the clinic, then you should go soon. Sometimes they close early. Thanks. I'll do that. Make sure you go, okay? To the hospital. I will. Go, for real. I will. Seemed like Rain had realised I was going to refuse her invitation for a while now. With how serious she looks, she might actually call the clinic later to make sure I went. Couldn't say anything careless. Lying about getting checked out was just an excuse to decline her request in the first place. Didn't matter whether I actually went. Yeah, I'll go. If you want, I can bring you the bill tomorrow. Oh, that would be good. Be sure to bring it, okay? Raina will look at it then. Another tingle started crawling up my back. There was no ignoring it. Raina and Mion must have been monitoring my movements. That wasn't normal. Far from it. All of it was insane. I did what I did because I wanted my peaceful life back. But what on earth was all this? It was far from peaceful. Something had gone mad, leaving the world out of order. With the other Keiichi Maebara, with those creepy footsteps I've been hearing, with Raina and Mion acting so curious, and above all, with him being alive. Where was I? Hinamazawa's village, Shishibone. I knew that much. Was this really the Hinamazawa I knew? Hey, Keiichi Maebara, where is this? I asked, whipping round before the front door, to face the one who's been following in my wake all day. Nobody would have been there, of course. Keiichi Maebara, huh? That's what I just called him. Called the one who'd been trailing behind me this whole time. That shadowy presence was clinging to me like it was constantly watching for the opportunity to change places. Footsteps always following me was another impossibility. Could have been a ghost, it was just impossible. So the strangeness must have been my ears, my head, or Hinamizawa. Everything I could see was the same exact Hinamizawa I knew so well, and that gave me the creeps. Eventually I decided to actually go to the clinic. I really didn't want to go outside, but a stronger feeling than that desire was the fear that Raina might actually be keeping an eye on me to see if I went to the hospital. But before I went to the clinic, there was something I wanted to make sure of. It was at school. Pretended I'd forgotten something, and was going back to the classroom to pick it up. As soon as the thought crossed my mind, I was overwhelmed by paranoia. I was just going to the classroom, but I hated it so much, having to be so careful to fake it. After carefully verifying once more that nobody was watching, I went over to the locker. Yes, Satoshi's locker. Committed the crime with the bat I found in this locker, Satoshi's bat, and then I'd thrown the bat into the swamp, which meant the bat shouldn't have been inside. But what if the bat was still in here? It was a dreadful, incomprehensible idea, but if it was true, it would explain a lot. If the bat was in here, yesterday's events would have all been a delusion. No, an illusion. I hadn't killed anyone, and I'd gone to the festival. I had a great time rampaging about with everyone. It would prove that Keiichi Maebara was really me. Proof that I was only under some strange assumption that I'd killed Toko's uncle. Proof that it had been a wild fantasy. That would explain everything. Nothing happened yesterday. I'd just gone mad, unable to separate my shocking, uncle-killing dream from reality. That would explain everything. If the bat was here, would I be able to accept that reality? If it was here, nothing would have changed. If it was here, it would just mean I'd gone crazy. Preparing myself for the worst, I opened the locker door. I was actually scared of opening it slowly, so I threw it open with a bang. And just like the first time, the choking scent of smell and sweat, like a stale towel, came flowing out. There was a baseball uniform and some other miscellaneous things like notebooks. There was also a shoe pouch, and as for the bat, it wasn't here. It was how I left it when I took the bat out. There was no doubt, yesterday really happened. Now that I knew I wasn't a lunatic, I felt relieved, but at the same time, if I wasn't the crazy one, then Hinamizawa was, and that was evidence of reality I found just as difficult to accept. There was noise somehow creeping into everything I saw, and the world was losing a tiny bit of colour. So what did I know about last night now? Now that I'd made sure the bat wasn't there, I didn't need to be here anymore. Shall I go, for real, to the hospital? It was my first time going to the hospital, but from what I've heard, it wasn't far from school. My mum had told me where it was. A big, easy-to-see road went straight there. I went past a shopping street, made a turn. It wasn't overly hard to spot the sign with Irie Clinic written on it. There was one other person, an older man, there in an air-conditioned waiting room. I went up to the counter and told them it was my first time here. The man behind the counter glanced at the clock and said there'd be a short wait. It was almost 5. Clinic hours would be ending soon. As I sat in this unfamiliar waiting room, isolated from everyone and let myself feel the cool air, I actually felt relieved. What should I tell the doctor when he comes? I tell him I had a cold, but I was a very picture of health. Actually, I wanted him to check my head. I wanted someone to confirm for me whether I was really sane or not. Keiichi Maebara? Please, come into the examination room. Huh? The voice from the other side of the exam curtain. Thought I'd heard it somewhere before. Hello. This is the first time we've seen each other here. Coach, you're a doctor? Now that you mention it, he did seem to know his way around when he was looking at my shoulder in the nurse's office. Makes sense if he was actually a doctor. Come to think of it, our teacher called him, Mr. Irie, didn't she? Well, yes, I'm more or less a doctor here. Doctors have it really good, you know? Get to see and touch. Seeing that made my cold go away. I'll be leaving now. Polite bow. Oh, wait. Maebara. A joke, it was a joke. Come, sit down and let me take a look at you. I'll need to use my stethoscope, so show me. Felt really relieved. After that insane night, as much as I thought everything had gone crazy, Coach was here doing the same thing he always did. I was happy for that. You don't seem to have a cold. Actually, those scrapes and cuts all over you seem to be the painful thing. Don't tell me you're playing in the bushes with short sleeves and shorts. I mean, I can't say for sure you haven't been infected with tetanus. So I was chasing that man last night. I kept being scraped by bits of tree. Didn't realise I had so many cuts. You went a little too crazy at the festival yesterday. Enjoy that while you're young. Once again, I apparently went to the festival. Coach, did you go too? To the festival? Yes, of course I did. I may be a doctor, but I'm also on the Tatarigoroshi Executive Committee. Did you see me there? His coach was the same coach I'd always known. I felt like I could trust him more than my weird friends, so I asked. Well, actually, I was drinking in the main tent with the chairman and the others the whole time. I didn't go out to see the festival at all. Don't think I saw you. Oh, that was a strange question. Perhaps you didn't sleep well last night? Can't do that. You have to sleep and eat well to grow up fine. Coach let out a laugh. Didn't laugh in a natural way like Mion and Raina did. Coach was okay. He was the coach from the world I knew. He wasn't someone from this abnormal world. Well, this all might seem a little weird to you, but I want you to hear me out without laughing. Yes, go ahead. I greatly welcome any shy, bashful worries you might have. Could it be possible that I have an identical twin? Coach hadn't expected that question at all and couldn't say anything for a moment, but then he smiled calmly and quietly answered. This is just a superstition, but I've heard before that everyone has two other people in the world who just look like them. If there was, I'd certainly like to meet them, though. Also, there are plenty of fairy tales where a person's double appears. The German ones about doppelgangers are probably the most famous. Doppelgangers? Yes, they look exactly like another person. Apparently they herald misfortune, and if you meet one, you're sure to die soon. I think that's how it went. You meet them, you're sure to die soon? Story ended directly in death, plain and simple, and it made my spine tingle. Coach wasn't saying it to scare me, though. He was just offering a casual anecdote, but that made it feel all the more real. Have you ever heard of one of those things showing up in Hinamizawa? What? Well, I can't say that I have. Coach must have thought he was being teased, so he laughed in an exaggerated way. When I did smile along with him, his laughter steadily grew fainter. Sorry, well, I was sort of being serious. No, I apologise for laughing. Was there something you were worried about? Wondered if I should tell him. Then, after resolving myself one final time, I slowly spoke. I didn't go to the festival yesterday. Is that right? Well, there will be one next year, and then you can... That's not what I meant. I didn't go to the festival, but according to everyone else, I was there. Could that even be possible? After blinking his eyes in amazement, Coach thought seriously about what I was trying to say, and he answered, choosing his words carefully. Let me make sure I have this straight. Maebara, you went to the Tatarigoroshi festival, but don't remember it. Am I right? I was trying to say something completely different, but I suppose any sane person would come to that conclusion. That night, Keiichi Maebara was actually at the festival, but I was saying I didn't go. That obviously meant my memories of going there had failed me. But that was absolutely impossible. The vivid act I committed during the downpour couldn't possibly have been an illusion. All these scrapes on my body prove it, as to the fact that the bat wasn't in the locker. No, that's not it, Coach. I really didn't go to the festival. Please, don't take offence, Maebara. Have you ever had an experience where you were suddenly somewhere unfamiliar and you couldn't remember why? No, and I didn't lose my memories or anything, because while the festival was going on, I was definitely doing something else. It wasn't like I was asleep and unconscious or anything. You're certain you were doing something else? I know I'm being awfully rude, but are you sure you're not mistaken? I know I'm not. My memories are clear as day, and they were real. During the festival, you weren't at the shrine and you were doing something somewhere else. Can you definitely prove that? That's right. Thinking it through brought me to this. There was only one way to prove that I really wasn't at the festival yesterday. That was to show that there was no doubt I'd killed her uncle. Coach saw me struggling to answer and his eyes looked a little cold. I guess they would. After all, from Coach's perspective, I was just a weirdo sputtering nonsense. Would you like to lay down? Maybe you should relax and take it easy for a bit. Sorry, I didn't really come here to lay down. Seem to be a little worked up. Why don't I give you a sedative that'll let you sleep for a bit? That way. I'm not being strange. I realised Coach was treating me like a deviant, so I ranged my voice. I apologise if I've offended you, so please calm down. I definitely didn't go to the festival. That's the truth. I understand, so please calm down, take a deep breath. No, you don't understand at all. Coach was stunned and stared in stupefaction. I do understand, Maebara. You didn't go to the festival yesterday. Is that right? I believe you. I believe you. Coach jotted down a brief note in his records. He was writing it in German, so that his patient wouldn't know what it said, but I could make a good guess as to what he wrote. You won't believe me until I tell you everything I was doing at the time, will you? No, I believe you. Please, sit down. Before I sat, I tilted my head back a little. The blood in my face all drained out and I quieted down. After taking a deep breath, I made sure I was calm now. It would have been impossible for me to be at the festival, because at the time I was... Should I tell him or not? I really didn't want to go on living like this, feeling this horrible... I said them, the final, fatal words. Because I was killing Stoko's uncle at the time. I could smell the concrete in the room, I could feel the air around us sharpen. Nobody moved. Only the sound of the clock ticking told us time hadn't stopped. With his mouth wide open, Coach even forgot to blink for a little while. You killed Stoko's uncle? Yeah, it's fine now, Keiichi Maebara. Don't hesitate. Admit it with all your strength. Yes, last night, I did it. I killed him. I spoke clearly and fluidly. Could easily tell that Coach's mind had gone completely blank. Why would you... No! That was a foolish question. I believed it was the most direct method of saving Stoko, so I carried it out. Don't have any regrets. I see. Coach smiled thinly and nodded a bit. So I couldn't have been at the festival. I left the brightness of my house for the darkness of the outside. After that, I dug holes, made phone calls, I had my hands full, and then I attacked him, killed him, and buried him. It was pouring hard at the time. Festival started that evening, but it was suspended due to the rain. There were no gaps in my memories. From the late afternoon till it started to rain, there was no time for me to have possibly gone to the festival. And those wounds, are they from that? Yes, there's a road through the forest near Turco's house. I attacked him there. He ran, but I chased him and finally killed him near the road that leads to town. Is that true? Killing her uncle, it wasn't some wild fantasy? I could tell that Coach didn't believe me, so I spoke slowly, not letting myself grow too excited. It's true. I killed him with Satoshi's bat. I threw it and the uncle's motorbike into the swamp. I dug a hole, killed him, and buried him. I did it all by myself. Turco's uncle drove past you on a motorbike, did he? Then you predicted he'd do that and just waited? I assumed he wouldn't be leaving his house that day, so I lied to him over the phone to get him out. You called him? But your house is so far away from Turco's. Wouldn't think you'd be able to make it there so soon after calling him. I used a phone closer to where I was going to attack him, the one at school. But, Mebara, it was Sunday. Wouldn't the school have been locked up? Forest Ranger happened to go inside for a bit. I slipped in when I had the chance. After that, Coach grilled me on a few different things regarding the incident. He made sure to question me carefully, looking for any contradictions in my account. I'll believe you. What you did yesterday doesn't seem like a dream. I explained everything, including minor details that only someone who'd actually committed the act could explain. Could, of course. It was only yesterday. Coach realised that my story had no expedient coincidences or too convenient details that would have existed in a daydream or a delusion, and finally seemed to want to believe me. So, do you think I still went to the festival and lost my memory? Coach slowly shook his head. But everyone in class, they said I was at the festival yesterday. Is that even possible? No, it's not. Your classmates probably mistook you for someone who looked very similar. Then given how group psychology works, everyone just assumed that you'd been at the festival. They couldn't have mistaken me. Me and all the rest said they were spending time with Keiichi Maebara. It was much more than having just mistaken someone else for me. But saying that out loud would just confuse Coach. He spoke to me in whispered tones. Do you feel guilty at all? It didn't sound like he was criticising me. And even if he had, I would have flatly said the same thing. I don't. I did it so that I could return the peaceful days that he'd stolen from us. So I plan to forget all about having killed him and live my life as usual. Once Turco's regular smile returns, the one from before he showed up, everything will finally be over. Any chance that someone witnessed the crime? I don't think so. If someone had seen me, I would have been arrested already. I am a doctor. My job is to save lives. So I cannot make any statements to the effect of condoning the taking of another's life. Coach slowly rose and placed a hand on my shoulder. Right, I'm just going to get through this section and then I've got an IRL. Savings Turco, I thank you. Coach's eyes started shedding warm tears. When I looked at him, I started to feel some tears of my own. I didn't know what I was crying for, so for a little while the two men in the room fought back their tears. But it's strange. What is? I'm sure I killed him, and yet he seems to have returned home alive. Coach's expression immediately sharpened. Depending on the situation, there are many ways that mere unconsciousness can look like real death to a layperson. Do you think it's possible he was just knocked out? I didn't check for a pulse, but I'm pretty sure I did him in. Can I ask you to reproduce the situation in which you attacked him, Maebara? Colt wrote up a Health and Fitness Week poster nearby and offered it to me, to represent the bat. Though I may have been lost to the emotions of a beast that night, I remembered in detail the number of times I swung the bat, the angles I'd swung from, and the force I'd applied. Using Coach as a stand-in for the uncle, I reproduced them over one by one. And when he tripped and fell, I bashed him in the top of the head like this. When I did, it felt different from the other strikes. Thought I cracked his skull. Coach was calmly analysing this information, using the places I'd struck and the situation at hand to find out what state the uncle's body had been in. Wasn't totally sure I was dead, so I hit him a few more times after he fell. Did he react at all? First I sort of felt his body jolting with every hit, but eventually that stopped too and he didn't react at all. Coach folded his arms and said a few times, and then he spoke. He's dead. There's not much doubt about it. Didn't just look like he was. Can't say very much from just your story, Maebara, but I think it's almost certain. Besides, you buried the corpse in the mud, and that took you quite a bit of time, right? Let's say it took you 30 minutes. That would mean he was buried under the muddy water for 30 minutes. If you don't breathe for that long, your brain will die no matter what. mean, even ignoring how hard I hit him, he'd definitely have died while I was burying him. That's why it's possible to drown in an inch of water as long as your nose and mouth are covered up and you can't get your face out of it. That's right. It's impossible to stay alive buried underground for 30 minutes. Possible, you're right. But Stoko, she says he's alive. Coach, a doctor, just gave a stamp of approval that he was dead for sure. That made it seem all the more unfair that he could still be amongst the living. Mibara, this is a really horrible idea, but is it possible the person you killed wasn't actually her uncle? Huh? He's right, that could be why. Cleared out the inconsistency in my definitely having killed someone, but him still being alive. There's no way. I mean, we're both at Stoker's house when she was bringing his alcohol inside, and there was a man who stuck out his face out the window to look. It was him, right? That was Stoker's uncle, right? Yes, you're not wrong. It was that man. Could you have had more than one uncle or something? Not one that I've ever heard of. It's just him. Could you tell me what he looked like? Well, his height first. He was about 175 centimetres, maybe a little taller. In order to eliminate the worst possibility that I'd killed someone else, Coach began to thoroughly compare what the man in his mind looked like with what I told him the person I killed looked like. No matter how in-depth my description went, none of the characteristics differed. The uncle's traits, according to Coach, were all exactly the same as the person I'd killed. Those traits were all extremely vague, and they weren't particularly distinct at a glance. Is there anything else about him that would let us identify him for sure? Now that you mention it, I've never seen it, but I believe Stoker once said a long time ago he had a tattoo of a tiger or something on his back. Tattoo? That was really important. Not everyone had a tattoo. If I found a tiger tattoo on the back of the man's corpse, it'd be proof I killed the right one. At the moment, though, there was one thing that would verify this. To go to Stoker's house and see for myself the uncle that had returned home despite having died. But that was far more terrifying than digging up the body and looking at its back. Without even looking at the tattoo, I knew for sure the one I'd killed had been Stoker's uncle. I cracked his head open and killed him. And yet, he'd gone back home. There wasn't any misunderstandings or even the shadow of a doubt in my mind about having killed him. And yet, it was impossible for him to exist. Kind of like how Keiichi Maebara had been at the festival, despite it being impossible. That small commonality made me feel as though a faint but bizarre force was permeating this insane Hinamizawa. I wonder what on earth could have happened. Despite you not going to the festival and killing Stoker's uncle, you were at the festival and the uncle you killed is alive. None of this makes any sense. When I look at everything that way, it's almost like I'm just having a nightmare and there's no killer at all. But it's the truth. The sensations I used my own hands and that bat to bash him again and again, it was no illusion or dream. Coach let out a slow sigh, then after looking at the clock, got up. Let's go over this a little more seriously. If you'll excuse me, I'll go put on some tea. Clinic's about to close after all. I need to let the other employees leave. Coach stood up and went out into the hallway, leaving me alone. The clock was about to strike 6. I was at the festival and the uncle I'd killed was alive. Had I really committed murder yesterday? The only whisper of the fact that proved it happened was the absence of that bat from Satoshi's locker. In any case, I was glad that Coach had taken my nonsense seriously. I just confessed to murder. Normally that would frighten a person away, but Coach didn't run, he cried with me. I was glad he did. Like so, my tension smoothly melted away and I suddenly realised I really had to pee. Thought to use the restroom while Coach stepped out. There was one across in the waiting room. As soon as I left the room, I saw Coach and the 2 white male doctors wearing white clothing standing in the shadows of the hallway nearby. Didn't particularly intend to eavesdrop or anything, but I was quite surprised upon noticing how uneasy they seemed. I hid behind the wall and quietly listened in. It seemed like Coach was giving directions to the 2 doctors. Black tea? I'll make some. Mix in the sedative you think best for the occasion. Cover the taste with milk and sugar. You may grow suspicious at your sudden onset of drowsiness. It's possible they may get agitated and become violent. We will handle that. How many male staff are still here? 1 mountain dog, including us, 3. What was all this? I think I was already agitated despite what Coach said. Was that it? Was it just a casual conversation and it was only sounding unbelievable to me? Coach said he'd bring some black tea and left the room, and then in the shadows he was telling his subordinates to put some kind of sleeping powder in the tea. Plus they were getting extra help in case I thought the sudden sleepiness was suspicious and started getting violent. Hey, wait, Keiichi Maebara. Calm down, calm down. There's no way something this stupid could be happening. I mean, he was genuinely listening to my story and he even cried with me. I thought he was the one person in Hinamizawa who would understand. There are signs of fabrications or falsehoods, and his memories of yesterday in particular are completely confused. He can no longer tell truth from falsehood. It's quite similar to multiple personality disorder. But as for how quickly this disorder emerged, it's just not normal. Maybe it's inborn, or perhaps there were signs of it before he moved here. I'd like to take a look at any records of him staying at a mental hospital before he moved here. In any case, I want him to take a quiet nap. The 2 doctors nodded deeply. I should probably contact Maebara's parents too, but I can't think of what to tell them. Please find his home phone number for me. My eyes still moist, began to shed tears once more. This was too cruel. I really thought he'd actually understood and had believed what I told him. But now, from the other side of that wall, he was bluntly treating me like a crazy person. Believed you. I believed you. I'd let down my guard, because I thought you were the only ally I had left after that insane night. Was that a lie? Or that about thanking me on Stoker's behalf? Were you just pretending in order to keep me placated? My tears fell to the floor in frustration. I was an idiot. Such an idiot for believing that bastard. I heard footsteps approaching the doctors. A man in a dress shirt with no tie came running up. Dr. Irie, it's terrible. They found Mr. Kano. Mr. Kano? Wait, where? Well, apparently they discovered her burned corpse in the mountains in Gifu. She's dead? Mr. Kano? The men, all surprised, exchanged glances. Dead? Mr. Kano? Hey, wait. So does that mean when I cursed her, wishing for her death, that wish was granted? What do you mean? So she was the burned corpse, and then they found Tomitake separately, I suppose. What do you mean, burned corpse? Was it an accident? According to the statement from the prefectural police department, possibility is extremely high that she was murdered. As I cried, I laughed quietly. Serves you right. Serves you right. If I hadn't run into that woman, my murder would have been perfect, but she just had to come driving up to me and tried to coerce me like that. I regretted not having killed her on the spot, but now she was dead anyway. My curse, my wish for her demise, it was fulfilled. Serves you right. Serves you right. Risa died and Takano died. What on earth could be happening in Hinamizawa? Don't tell me that this was all Oyashiro-sama's curse for this year? Risa? Like hell I'd let the curse be real, Coach said. Sorry, I missed it. Even present just nodded as Coach cast at no one in particular, but this was definitely a spell, or a curse. I wished for her to die, so she did. If this wasn't just a coincidence, and she died because I wished for it, then you'll die next, Coach. You betrayed me. You looked down on me with all that pity in your eyes. Okay, fine. I have to do this first. I can't. Sorry, I can't concentrate on two things at once. I have to do this. For now, get the black tea ready. I'll bring it inside. I don't think he'd let anyone besides me be alone with him. Shit. What do I do? What do I do, Keiichi Maebara? This time I heard the voice of a nurse. Dr. Irie? Oh, there you are. You have a phone call. I'm a little busy at the moment, so please tell him I'll call back. Who is it from? I'm Mr. Oishi from the Okonomiya Police Department. Sheesh, what bad timing. Alright, I'll answer it. Coach left to go answer the phone. The other men headed towards the room with a teapot to make the black tea like Coach had ordered them to. Fortunately, Coach having to take that phone call meant there would be extra time for me to act. I had to decide what to do now. Would I let him make me drink the sedative diffused tea or be held down and thrown into a mental hospital? Nothing would come from starting a brawl here. They had more people anyway, and they're all bigger than me. If it came to a fight, I didn't stand a chance in hell. If I couldn't win against them, there was only one thing left to do. Run. Adrenaline suddenly rushed into my brain and my body started to move with keen instinct like it had on that night. My surface temperature quickly cooled and the transmission routes between my cells enlarged. Using 360-degree visual information, I searched for an escape route. I'd opened the window behind me. Outside was a parking lot. There were no cars. A little beyond there was the bicycle I'd taken to get here. I determined that this would be the quickest method of escape. I approached the window swiftly, but with little sound, to raise as little suspicion as I could. With the speed and silence of a shadow, like I had on that night, I chased her uncle. I unlocked the window and opened it up. The cool evening breeze wafted in. I stuck my head out and looked over the parking lot again. Nobody in sight. No need to hesitate. Quietly crawled outside and closed the window behind me. I held my breath and listened carefully. Nobody seemed to have realised I'd run. I looked around, then I jumped onto my bike and zoomed away. The pedals clattered under the force. Had my bike always creaked like this? Did the pedals always whine every time I pushed down on them? My bike wasn't the only one crying, though. My tears fell as the wind cut through them. They rode the breeze and scattered behind me. Ugh. I hate this. Not the crazy one. Hinamizawa is. How dare you treat me like a madman? Die! Just fucking die already. Believed you. I believed you. Ugh. I'd gone to the hospital in order to escape Rain-Mion's invitation, but the reality that was waiting for me had been too cruel. Who was insane? Me or Hinamizawa? Or was the answer something else? Started having trouble breathing. I didn't have any clue what was happening anymore. The loud chirps of the Higurashi were irritating me. Or even the Hinamizawa Higurashi I knew so well calling into the wind. No, that wasn't quite it. They weren't calling, they were crying. The pain wailing of those lost in some kind of rhythm, in another world, no longer able to return to their own sunlight. I didn't do all that to end up in a world like that. And actually, at about this time, I might have been having fun with everyone else. Stoker would have gotten a smile back after realising her uncle would never come home, and she might have shown it to us at our first club meeting in a while. That was the kind of world I wished for. So what was this? Why did I end up in such a strange, ghastly world? Someone I killed was living like normal, and I enjoyed myself at the festival despite not being there. I don't want it. I don't want this strange world. When did it all start to go wrong? When? When? No matter how much I thought about it, I never understood. I rode swiftly and returned to my home. It had begun to rain during my journey back, and just like yesterday, I was now soaked. But I didn't care about something so trivial right now. The pain I felt in my heart that Coach, the one person I trusted, was acting so cruelly was far worse. Did I have no allies in Hinamizawa anymore? With a naive thought that I at least wanted my parents to side with me, I stepped up to the front door. Wait, Keiichi. It'll be dark soon. There's something you want to check, right? Yes. I wanted to dig up the man's corpse and get a look at his back. There was a tiger tattoo there. I would know beyond a doubt that he was Toko's uncle. That long night wouldn't end until I was certain. If this insane world was all reparation, all a divine punishment, then I needed to make certain whether I'd been successful enough to even deserve to pay that price. I went to the storage room again and got the shovel. It had been washed in the rain, but the paint was peeling, making it look unsightly. I never ever wanted to touch this thing again. The sensation of it in my hands was totally different from the night before. There was a ruthless coldness about it. Yeah, it'd be dark soon, so I'd need the lantern too. There'd be a little bit of light from the streetlights, but it would get extremely dark. Thought I'd put the lantern here, but I suddenly noticed it wasn't anywhere to be found. Then it hit me like a bolt of lightning. Of course, that night, I hadn't brought the lantern back with me. I'd left it at the place I buried the body. If I didn't go to get it soon, it would get very dark, and then not only would I be unable to find the spot I'd buried the corpse, but I wouldn't even be able to find the lantern itself. If that happened, it was all over. I need to hurry. In order to fit the shovel in the basket on the front of my bike, I need to twist and disassemble it, but it looked like there was dirt in the joints, and no matter how hard I pushed, it didn't want to come apart. After a strenuous effort, I realised I couldn't get it apart, so I decided to hold it in one hand and ride my bike with the other. With a downpour soaking me through and a shovel in one hand, and riding one-handed, it was as if I'd returned to that night. No, return was the wrong word. It was more like that night had never ended. The pain of the raindrops striking me were no different from then. The thing that was different was Hinamizawa, the world and nothing else. The rain clouds were already making it dark, and now was about time for the sun to set. I could tell it would only get rapidly darker. The straight road ahead leading to town, in the middle of it. That should be where I buried it. Yes, it was near that street light. On that night too, the water from the downpour was splashing down from the streetlight's overhang like a waterfall. The pouring rain was exactly the same as it had been that night, and thus it brought my memories into focus. I left my bike in the brush and stepped into the forest, the ground already soaked with mud. Where had I buried him? Think. Darkness, the shadows, the water, the mud. Everything was the same. Think. And then I spotted the lantern by a fallen, moss-covered tree. That's right, I left it right there. If I left the lantern there, then I would have buried him over here. With the sensation of standing in the sludge, my feet remembered the spot better than my eyes did. I plunged my shovel into the ground. It's hard. It wasn't here. Just dug up, so it should have been softer. I stick my shovel down in a few spots to test what they feel like. One of them clearly felt deeper. Recalled where the lantern was, where the trees and things were in relation to each other, and knew that it had to be here. Under here slept that man's corpse. There would definitely be the tattoo of a tiger on his back. But if it wasn't there, then I'd made a horrible mistake and killed someone completely unrelated instead. I'd be more dazed at the fact that Toko's uncle wasn't dead than I'd regret having got someone else mixed up in this. This insane world was punishment for the sin of committing murder. I wouldn't be able to accept it until I'd killed Toko's uncle for good. And then without any fear, I'd attack him again. And that time, I'd kill him for sure. But what if that tattoo was there? That would mean I'd killed Toko's uncle. That would be terribly strange. If I'd killed him for sure, then who was the uncle at Toko's house this very moment? Possible. I didn't even know anymore what I was using the word impossible to refer to. I'd used the word quite a few times today. If I had to make the words impossible to fit just one thing, what would it be? That much was obvious to me. It would be impossible for this crazy world to be real. I shouted, then turned behind me. There was nobody there, of course. Hadn't been bothering me for a while, but those footsteps had followed me the entire day. Even just now, an extra set of footsteps splashed behind me. No one was actually there, no indication of anyone even. But they were there. Who are you? You've been following me ever since I came to this world. That's right. Thinking back, the first time I heard those footsteps was after Mr. Kano and I had parted. Those footsteps were my welcome into the strange inside-out world. No one could be there. I get no response. Whoever it was, they just kept staring at me. It wasn't ominous, just unpleasant. After staring into empty space for a bit, as I bathed in the rain, my logical anger slipped away. My tension loosened, and a tired feeling reared its head. I tasted this feeling that night too. The sudden exhaustion I felt as the tension in my brain loosened. My vision quickly narrowed, and I felt like everything around me had suddenly gotten darker. Couldn't give in to this sensation. I'd light what little explosives were left in my brain and force myself to keep going. I needed to dig that man up before my stamina ran out. I needed to see the tattoo on his back. I caught my suddenly ragged breath and calmed down. Then I stuck the shovel into the soft, muddy ground again. Felt exactly the same as that night. The sense of digging a hole in the beach with water coming into it with every wave. What day was today? Had I gone back to the night of Tatarigoroshi? Every strange thought that came to mind tormented me. Given my exhaustion, I didn't think I could hold those thoughts back. Once the hole was deep, all illumination finally faded, blanketing my vision in jet black. It was probably the moment the sun had fully set too. That night, I'd feared the worst and gone without using much light. My senses were so strained that I could see even in that darkness. But now I didn't have that kind of strength left. I drained everything I had last night, now the darkness would be lethal. Decided to turn on the lantern. Putting it on the first setting would make it give off a faint light. Even with how little there was, it was enough, and people wouldn't be able to see it far away in this rain. I grabbed the chilled lantern, turned the dial with a click, sent it to the weakest light setting and turned it on. An uncanny world of silhouettes appeared before me. A complex and strange shadow world, created by the intricate entanglement of trees and branches. I'd only turned on the light, and it was like that was all it took to make the world into something else. Let out a quick, tired breath and wiped the liquid, neither rain nor sweat, from my brow. Then I raised the shovel into the air and slammed it into the mud. That moment, the silhouettes surrounding me ominously all moved at once. My head, something packed in there, something coarse but not hot cold, was loudly rushing about. The silhouettes were all around me, looking down at me, and one of them, a silhouette bigger than the others, stepped forward. Good evening. Moon sure is beautiful tonight. Coarseness in my brain shot through my whole spine and left me at my waist. Strength in my body all left me through my hips, and I crouched down with a splash into the sea of mud I dug myself. Oishi. Is that really how you address your elders? You'll have a rough time of it once you become an adult. It wasn't only Oishi, but 5 or 6 of them in a row, men wearing raincoats. I had no inkling that this many people had gotten so close. It was like once I turned on the lantern, they just appeared there, sliding out of the shadows. Please, don't mind us. Just think of us as trees in the forest, perhaps. Don't mind them? Yes, pay no attention to us. Please, continue digging your hole. It's very late and raining very hard, and you're working pretty fervently. We won't get in your way. Please, dig to your heart's content. No thank you, I said. When I tried to get up and turn around, 2 men blocked that route. They stood on either side of me and lifted me up with amazing strength, then threw me into the sea of mud. As I soaked in the mud bath I dug for myself, I looked up at the silhouettes looking down at me. Mr. Oishi squatted, picked up my shovel and threw it at my feet for me, bounced loudly off the mud and hit me in the face. Come, please, continue. Couldn't bear the oppressiveness of the silhouette surrounding me, and slowly I stuck the shovel into the mud again. Felt like I was digging my own grave. If I kept digging, it wouldn't matter whether there was a tattoo or not, because the man's corpse would appear eventually. It was all over, surrounded on all sides and nowhere to go, but I just couldn't figure it out, no matter how much I thought about it. Why were they here? Was it Mr. Kano? There was only one person who could have made the connection between me and this place. Shit, I knew it. She deserved to die. Stopping so soon? Ah! Bam! Mr. Oishi kicked me in the back, which took me by surprise, sending me flying into the mud. Hurry up and dig, please. You really should consider the fact that some of us are standing out here in the rain. Fuck you. If you don't like the rain, just go home. Ah! Oishi kicked some mud into my face. Work, please, instead of talking. Only stage actors do both at once. Isn't that right, boys? The men around him didn't react, not knowing quite whether they should laugh, but when Oishi glared at them, they started mumbling out pain chuckles. Just who was this guy? I knew the world had changed after that night, but if I went even further back, didn't it start when this guy showed up? That was when our peaceful days had been taken from us. Ever since he showed up in Hinamizawa, things had been odd. Everyone stopped smiling and the world went crazy. The ground under my feet gradually got harder and heavier. At this point, even I started to think something was odd. I hadn't buried him this deep on that night, had I? My exhaustion peaked and I sat down on the spot. How long do you want me to dig? Kids these days have no stamina. Hey, you. At Oishi's gesture, the men all pulled out their own sinister-looking shovels. As I watched her daze, one of them grabbed my collar, dragged me out the hole, and threw me to the ground. The rest of the men stepped into the hole I dug and started shoveling themselves. As I stared at them, dumbfounded, Mr. Oishi sorted over and squatted down to look at me directly. Didn't I say I had a thing at 10? Well, this is more interesting. Mibara, is this a hobby of yours, digging holes on rainy nights? When I didn't respond, Oishi took one of the tin buckets they were using to bail out the muddy water, scooped up some of it, and splashed the whole thing in my face. The rain's heavy today, too. No matter how wet I get, I still don't understand the appeal. Oishi smiled to himself and scooped up another bucketful of muddy water. I'll ask you once again, is digging holes on rainy nights your hobby? Who the hell would have a hobby like that? Splash. Oishi hit me with another bucketful of muddy water. Pebbles in it stung. Will there be something in that hole? I've always liked that story, you know, about the old man who could make plants bloom and the puppy digging in his garden for the old. As he spoke, he ran the bucket through the muddy water again, to splash it in my face again. What kind of treasure is buried down there, Can't you at least give me a hint? If you want to know, then dig on your own time, you fucking pig. I wasn't saying that out loud, but I wish you mercilessly drenched me in muddy water again anyway. Shit. If only you hadn't shown up, the world wouldn't have gone wrong. Ever since you showed up, things have been strange. As Toka got abused by her uncle, I ended up killing him and the world went crazy. He was how it all began, because of this culprit. He splashed another bucket of water in my face. My insides were seething with anger. Die. You die too. If I have some strange power to kill someone by cursing them, like with Mr. Kano, then you're dead. And it won't be Oyashiro-sama's curse, it'll be mine. I'll curse you and kill you. What a rebellious look you're wearing. Why don't we use this opportunity to teach you a thing or two in that regard? We really do live in peace these days. When I was about your age, corporal punishment was the norm for everything. Mr. Oishi. One of the digging men in raincoats wiped some sweat off and called Oishi over. Oishi took the bucket away, then turned around with an evil grin on his face. Yes, what is it? Please, look at this. Acceptance or maybe resignation. I wanted to say to them, so you blockheads finally found it. Yeah, that's right, I'm the one who killed him. But you're the police, so it's your job to figure out who he is, right? Come on, prove to me that he's really Toko's uncle. What on earth? I think it's an old drain pipe. Seems to be connected to the irrigation channel over there. Smash the thing. It's not being used, is it? Men will exchange glances, then hesitantly broached another topic. Mr. Oishi, the ground down there is pretty hard. Don't think any good thing could be deeper than this. Did we get the location wrong? No, at first it definitely felt like the place had been dug up before, but after digging so far, the ground suddenly hardened. I think we've gone down further than the hole that was originally dug. So, what does that mean? There was a hole here and someone filled it back up? Is that what you're trying to tell me? What? What were they talking about? Well, I'm at a loss. Aren't you, Mibara? I wish you grabbed my collar and dragged me to the huge hole they dug. The mud inside was like an ocean. I couldn't see any drain pipe down there. But then one of the men stirred it with a shuttle, letting me hear it clang against something hard. There was no doubt I buried him right here, but I hadn't buried him this deep. I didn't dig deep enough to unearth an entire drain pipe. So, then, this man, his corpse, where was it? Proof that I'd been successful on that night was gone. Gone. Then what on earth was I? Was I actually crazy after all and just possessed by the delusion that I'd killed someone? That couldn't be. It was the unmistakable truth. It couldn't have been a hallucination. But now, the most important evidence that it hadn't been an illusion was gone. I killed him. I buried him. I had absolutely unwavering confidence in that fact. Then did I fail to kill him? After I left here, had he started breathing again, crawled out, and gone back to Stoker's house? Was that it? I'd come here to see whether he had a tattoo or not, and yet the truth I unearthed was far more than that. Yesterday, what was I killed him. I buried him. There was no doubt. But for some reason he lived and crawled back out, and that was impossible too. Oh, I'm so tired of hearing the word impossible over and over. I get it. Dead people don't like to play by the rules here in Hinamizawa. Then I'll kill you as many times as I need to. Keep killing you until you never show your face to Toko again. Oishi and the others were muttering to each other. Eventually their conversation ended and Oishi came towards me. What did he want to say? What did he want to do? I stiffened, tensing up, and then Oishi just ignored me like I wasn't even there and passed right by me. The other men too, they ignored me and shuffled away. Eventually there was no longer a sign that anyone was around, and I returned to my quiet world of silhouettes. The only one left there was me. Only the sound of the pouring rain filled up the silence. Yikes! Right, we're going to read these new tips and finish for the night. This time for real. Okonomiya Police Station Command Center Transmission Recording. June 20th, 8:08 PM. This is Okonomiya Security Police. We read you loud and clear. Hello, we'd like you to look up a license plate for us. Shishibone H4344. Shishibone H4344, alright? Please give us just a moment to look it up. Thank you. Number match. Shishibone H4344. Owner. Address somewhere in Hinamizawa Village, Shishibone. Vehicle maker model, something or another. Theft reports, none. Special mentions, nothing of note. Okonomiya Security Police to Oishi. We found the license plate from earlier. Oishi, do you read? Oishi, please respond. Am I getting a bad signal? Anyone in Oishi's car, please... Nothing, eh? Mr. Oishi wanted a license plate check? Whose car was it? Someone from the village, a completely average car. Who was it? If Mr. Oishi was asking, then it can't be anyone good, right? Special mentions column is completely blank. No indication it's related to the S group either. No demerits on it. Haha, maybe it passed him on the road and he got mad. That guy's isn't the type to forget a grudge. He said it smelled. He said the food smelled. He said it smelled because I smelled. He said I smelled because I don't take baths. He said to take a bath 3 times a day because I was a smelly person. He said I had to stay in the bath for a long time every time. He must be possessed by something too. This is the same thing the man who died said. Why does he know what that man said before? That much is obvious. The same thing that possessed that man is now possessing him. Can't a sudden earthquake make a big fall in front of the house? If it did, he would definitely go and look into it, and then I'd just have to push him in. I won't give in until I get that chance. I won't give in. I won't cry. I won't give in. I won't cry. Ah, someone's apologising again. Ah. Well, inappropriate music time. That is very, very odd. And I am extremely confused. And with that, we are indeed going to end things off there. I believe we've got 2 more chapters, so it'll be 1 or 2 more streams to finish this off, I reckon. But for now, I've got to go do shit. So I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. It is very much appreciated. And I do hope that you enjoyed. I will be streaming Dishonored 2 this Saturday, where we are going to be investigating Jindosh Mansion. Then on Sunday it will be just Destiny 2, where we're going to be continuing some of the inverted commas story missions of Black Armory and season of the Drifter. If I can unlock them. Then on next Tuesday it'll be Final Fantasy XIV, where we shall be picking up the investigation into Clusia. And then finally, next Thursday will be more Higurashi when they cry to Tatarigoroshi, where we will investigate the question of the missing body. So take care everybody, have a wonderful evening, do look after yourselves, and I shall see you guys on Saturday.